Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Rice, will you call the roll?
Mr. Fenwick?
Here.
Mr. Bellamy?
Aquí.
Mr. Signer?
Here.
Ms. Dacus? Here. Ms. Galvin?
Here.
Okay, awards and recognitions. Mr. Fenwick, would you mind beginning?
These are the announcements, right?
Let's do, yeah, we mixed them up the last time. Okay, let's do awards and recognitions first and then do announcements.
I have an award in recognition.
Okay.
As the council representative to the scholarship program board, I'd like to announce that the City Scholarship Program has awarded 10 more scholarships this year to, I think they're all Charlottesville High School seniors. And I'm going to take a couple of minutes and just give you a couple of sentences about each of them. They are an impressive group of young people, all coming out of CHS. Tariq Carrington has had an exceptional academic career, earning a 4.43 GPA while enrolling in rigorous honors, AP, and dual enrollment classes. He looks ahead to a career in the medical field and has been accepted at his first choice Virginia Commonwealth University. He's also a leader and award winner on the CHS track team. Kunga Dayang, her goal for the future is to become a nurse. Her parents lived in Tibet and relocated to India, where she was born. Because they wanted a brighter future for their daughter, they came to America, and she is certainly living out that brighter future. When she graduates, she will have earned a GPA of over 4.0 and taken multiple honors, AP, and dual enrollment classes, including Chinese. During her time in high school, she has participated in girls' soccer, international and Chinese clubs, and has worked part-time at a local restaurant for 2 years. Grace Gilbert has been accepted at the College of William and Mary and intends to pursue studies in the sciences. She has a passion for photography and will graduate with a GPA, I didn't know this was possible, of 4.7. She is also active in various clubs at CHS and participates in concert choir and is a volunteer at the Virginia Discovery Museum. Valeria Gutierrez Cruz plans to study physical therapy and ultrasound in college. Her mother immigrated from Mexico to give her children a better life. And she participates in AVID and Computers for Kids, as well as other extracurricular activities. She's worked at a local daycare center during the summer break. Zarni Hine, his parents and his brother came to the United States, where they faced many hardships and challenges relating to a new language, starting school, and leaving members of their extended family behind. And he's planning to study engineering and get a bachelor's degree from a four-year university. Robin Heitman has a passion to be involved in the fine and performing arts and is interested in arts in many areas. And she has applied to many fine four-year colleges and universities. Justice Howard is taking all of her classes as a dual enrollment student. That means she's getting college credit while being in high school for 2015-2016. At CHS, she took many honors and AP classes and will graduate with a 4.6 grade point average. She has an interest in psychology and applied to several universities. Tanner Largent, in addition to softball, Tanner also plays volleyball and maintains strong grades in academics. She will graduate this month. She works part-time at a local restaurant, and her AVID teacher says that most students seem to either work or play sports, but the fact that Tanner could do both while maintaining strong grades is a testament to her skills and her drive. She's interested in studying physical therapy. Lakira Mills plans to pursue studies in biology and chemistry, and she, after graduation, she would like to enter the medical field. She will graduate with a 3.5, and she works as a cashier on the sales floor during breaks and holidays. And Wendell Santiago plans to study nursing and physical therapy at a Virginia college and has already been accepted at ODU, Radford, Longwood, and UVA-Wise, and he will graduate with a 4.0. And these students are all students with academic excellence, but particularly with economic need And these are folks who might not be able to go to college if it weren't for the help that they get from scholarships like ours. And so I have tracked some of the students who've gone before. We've been doing this since the early 2000s. And some of the students who have gotten these scholarships have done amazing things and made us proud. Some of them have come home and been leaders in our community. Others have gone across the country and have carried with them the kind of ambassador role about what a wonderful place Charlottesville is and what a great education you can get here. So I was telling them earlier that I expect to be proud of all of them, and congratulations to them all.
Thank you, Ms. Hickes. Congratulations.
And one other unusual thing about the scholarships that the city awards is that they're 4-year scholarships. So they get an award this year, and then next year, if they stay in school, they get more. And then third year, they get more than that, and the fourth year, they get more. So it's a real incentive to complete their education in 4 years, but also a recognition that a lot of scholarships are 1-year scholarships, and so the need increases the longer they're there.
Thank you very much. A lot of hard work has gone into this. Mr. Bellamy?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, don't know how many of you all knew, but this is something really good that's going on. It is National Police Memorial Week, so we have to make sure we thank all of our law enforcement officers for the great work that they've been doing, and we have a proclamation for them, and it reads as such. Whereas, in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others, and whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, almost 21,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty, including 128 officers killed in 2015, and whereas countless men and women of our great community have proudly worn the uniform of our area local enforcement agencies and have unselfishly dedicated their lives to the service of others, and whereas we are fortunate to have a police department that strives for professionalism and continually serves our community with honor, duty, and integrity. Now therefore be it resolved that I, and I'm not him, but Mr. Michael Signer, Mayor of the City of Charlottesville, do hereby recognize the week of May 15th through 21st, 2016 as National Law Enforcement Memorial Week in the City of Charlottesville and urge all citizens of this community to honor our citizens serving in the Charlottesville Police Department and law enforcement agencies across America this week and always. Signed and sealed on the second day of May 2016. And we have someone very special here. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bellamy, Mayor, members of council. This, as you said, this award's been going on, this recognition's been going on for more than 50 years now in the United States. It means a great deal to the men and women of all law enforcement agencies, particularly coming from the people we serve, the citizens of Charlottesville and this council, the city manager. It means that much more to the men and women of our police department. So on behalf of them, I thank you for this.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I must say that I am looking forward to, after last council meeting, we officially appointed our new police chief. I know our current police department as well as our new police chief are diligently looking forward to making sure that we build bridges within our community and have community relationships. So thank you again for all the work that you do, and the best is yet to come. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, another one, this is close to my heart. So this is a proclamation. Paul, would you mind coming down? Honoring Paul Byer and the Tom Tom Founders Festival. Whereas Paul Byer, a Charlottesville native, has evidenced a sincere and abiding desire to celebrate the residents, founders, and businesses who have made Charlottesville a world-class city, and to that end launched the Tom Tom Founders Festival in 2012 to celebrate music, art, and innovation. And whereas Paul recognized Charlottesville was a community with world-class researchers, supportive government officials, a beautiful landscape, and a caring community, making a perfect home for the Tom Tom Founders Festival. And whereas the Tom Tom Founders Festival has become an annual week-long celebration of music, art, food, and innovation boasting over 78,000 attendees to date and partnering with over 400 community groups and organizations. And whereas in 2016, its 5th year, the Tom Tom Festival brought a record 38,000 people to the city of Charlottesville to enjoy music, art, innovation, and food, hosted competitions where $1.5 million was awarded in grants and funding, and brought together 49 bands and performers, 81 speakers, and 136 artists and creative vendors. And whereas the Tom Tom mission is to celebrate founders, connect resources, and leave legacies, and through Paul's vision, the Tom Tom Founders Festival has accomplished precisely those goals, fostering remarkable connections among varied communities within the Charlottesville areas, while producing extraordinary renown for Charlottesville and Virginia and the nation as a whole. Now therefore, I, Mike Signer, Mayor of the City of Charlottesville, do hereby honor Paul Baier for his deep commitment and loyalty to his hometown city, for bringing his vision for celebrating creative founding to life through the Tom Tom Founders Festival, for bringing new appreciation of fun as a virtue, and for giving the world yet another reason to know Charlottesville as a great place to live, work, and play. Signed and sealed the 2nd day of May, 2016.
Bellamy. Well, first, I'm honored that you all would do this for me, and I'm honored that I can accept this on behalf of an awful lot of community members that make this happen. As you mentioned, there's hundreds of organizations that chip in each year and help celebrate our city, and countless staff and volunteers. I think we had 300 volunteers over the week. So my hat's off to them, and I'm honored that I can accept on their behalf. We have a couple of our board members in the back, Greg Graham and David Tooby, just to hear. And again, thank you all. Thank you. I wanted to also just take a moment, because Tom Tom happens in the city, and it wouldn't be able to happen at all if it weren't from supportive folks like you all, Councilors Galvin and Sakos, who for years have been supportive of this. And thank you, Mr. Fenwick. I saw you a couple times throughout the week, and you've been supporting entrepreneurship for years here in our city. And of course, Mayor Signer, Vice Mayor Bellamy, you all spoke at the festival this year, and it was, you're a riot. I loved having you. You were the MC of our crowdfunded pitch night, where 10 entrepreneurs were celebrated, and then you also gave an incredible talk at our youth summit, inspiring our students, and then of course you gave a vision for the future of the city as an entrepreneurial hub at our Future Forum. So I just wanted to give you both, see, gifts go back. But these were banners that flew on the downtown mall throughout the month of Tom Tom, and I would like to present these to the council as a whole. But then there's 2 different banners. One says, "Found Yourself," which is the unofficial motto of Tom Tom, and I would like this to go to Mr. Bellamy.
Thank you, sir.
And the reason is because the festival is about founding, the self-empowerment, and that is, I think, the key to all of us achieving something. And I felt like Mr. Bellamy really gave some powerful comments at the festival that celebrated our youth and did that. And then the second banner is America's Founding City, and the idea that we're not just a city for the past, we're a city for the future, and we're a city that's about founding, and the best is yet to come. And I felt like, due to the mayor's comments, I just wanted to give this to you as well.
I'll go in my office.
And last but not least, I wanted to thank Maurice and our city staff who made this all happen. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for allowing Jason to be on our board, Jason Ness, and special thanks to Michelle Christian and Craig Fabio with the Parks Department. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. All right, announcements. Let me start with Ms. Galvin.
Yes, I have one about the Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority, and it's Celebrate Our Drinking Water Supply. Come to the Ragged Mountain Reservoir on Thursday, May 5th at 10:30 a.m. to noon to learn about the people and process behind our water, from nature to the tap to the Rivanna River. RWSA, Rivanna Conservation Alliance, Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District, Charlottesville Public Works, and Albemarle County Service Authority will be there with information and demonstrations on watershed protection, dam construction, water treatment, wastewater treatment, river stewardship, conservation, and more. Free shuttles will run continuously starting at 10:25 a.m. from Trinity Church at 1301 Fontaine Ave. No cars parked at the reservoir please. Chris Jenzik, City Parks Trail Planner, will lead a moderately difficult 45-minute hike at 11 a.m. And a time capsule will be sunk in the reservoir at 11:55 a.m. to mark this historic milestone for our drinking water supply, which has provided water since the 1880s. Raffle, food, and fun for all ages. This rain or shine event is free. For more information on the event and your drinking water supply, go to www.rivanna.org/celebrate-ragged, all one word. Questions, call Terry Kent at 434-977-2970, extension 101. And I would like to add one more follow-up announcement that relates to the Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority, and that is the past week the board of the authority authorized the executive director to award a contract to a contractor to do odor mitigation for the Moores Creek water treatment facility. That is a huge, huge milestone for this community to finally address the odors emanating from that treatment facility that was affecting the quality of life for Belmont, Woolen Mills, and our county neighbors across the river in the Pantops area. So I just wanted the public to know that is going to be a reality. We move forward on it. And thanks everyone for their patience and their commitment. It does pay off.
Didn't they also decide to continue to do composting at the McIntyre Recycling Center?
Yes, they did, and that's also very important. The McIntyre Recycling Center will continue through the end of this calendar year, taking in food scraps. And we will be making an assessment of that in September to see just how much volume we generate. It is a question of we do want to get economies of scale at some point. It's not only a question of that it's the right thing to do. We have to understand whether or not a drop-off center is the appropriate way to go. Do we need more? Even curbside pickup. So
Bring your
anyway.
garbage to
So bring your
McIntyre.
garbage to McIntyre Recycling. It really helps the planet with when the food's not in the landfill, it's not generating additional greenhouse gas. So thank you.
I would like to announce this year's Festival of Cultures, which will be on May 14th at Lee Park from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Come and celebrate the cultural and linguistic diversity of our local community. The 13th annual Festival of Cultures will be a day of free, family-friendly fun with all-day entertainment, music, dance, song, and storytelling. Enjoy hands-on cultural craft activities, visit cultural exhibits, foods and artisan vendors. You can also take a passport and travel the world in Lee Park. There are dance and lots of, it's just an amazing thing. You should come to Lee Park that day. It's in Lee Park, Market Street, next to main branch of the library in downtown Charlottesville, free and open to the public, May 14th. We also have an announcement that May is National Foster Care Month. And as a four-time foster parent, I am very appreciative of the work that's being done to support foster children and foster parents and foster families in our community. There are 3 different events. The first is May 6th, part of First Fridays, this Friday, at Art in the City. Will be Foster Art. Kaki Dimmick, a local artist, will unveil an interactive, movable art installation representing the number of children in care in our community from 5:30 p.m. at the McGuffey Art Center and also at 7 p.m. at the Ix Park and 2nd Street Gallery. Then on May 14th, on Saturday, Foster Care Awareness Walk, Piedmont Foster Walk 2016, sponsored by the Foster Care Alumni Association of America. You can register and find details at www.crowdrise.com/Piedmont Foster Walk. The walk begins at 8:30 at KTEC, and they'll be walking down the Warner Parkway Trail. Please arrive at 8 to find parking, and your team can walk or run. Dogs are welcome. And then all of May at the Jefferson Madison Regional North Side Library, the Heart Gallery display, the gallery of posters sharing children ready and waiting for their adoptive home in the state of Virginia. So stop by the North Side Library. And then just a quick thing, at the Transit Bus Center out on Avon Street at 8:30 a.m. will be a demonstration of our electric buses. On May 14th from 9 till 3 will be the grand opening of the Lewis and Clark Center in Dardentown Park. And I don't know, Mr. Bellamy, are you going to mention something about the Young Black Men's Conference? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bellamy?
Sure, so I have a couple of quick announcements. May 2nd, or excuse me, Clean Commute Day is coming up. So in collaboration with Rideshare, UTS, Jaunt, and Greene County Transit, Charlottesville Area Transit is asking local residents to pledge to use alternative transportation on Friday, May 6th. Qualified forms of alternative transportation include walking, riding the bus, bicycling, and carpooling. Those who pledge will automatically be entered to win great prizes, including Amtrak train tickets, Washington National baseball tickets, and 30-day CAT transit passes. Individuals may pledge online at www.catch.org. Again, individuals may pledge online at www.catchthecat.org or in person by visiting the Downtown Transit Center at 615 East Water Street. To celebrate, CAT will offer fare-free rides all day on Friday on all routes. So catch the bus if you can. A couple of other announcements. I want to send some special kudos to Mr. Corey, Holly Lee, as well as Matt Murphy from the Downtown Job Center for putting on a phenomenal resource fair for felons, reentry resource fair for felons this past Saturday. Great turnout. They worked very hard. Also, thank you, City Manager Jones and our Assistant City Manager, Mr. Mike Murphy. The follow-up to that will be on Wednesday, May 11th. Now, Charlottesville is having our big job fair, and that's going to be at JPJ. Again, Wednesday, May 11th from 10 to 3. It's free and welcome to any and everyone from the community. So come on out, and hopefully we can help you get a job. This Saturday, coming up, the Charlottesville Alliance for Black Male Achievement is going to have our first annual The Black Man Can breakfast and symposium. So this is for young males from no matter where you are, city, whatever. We want you to come there. Registration starts at 9 a.m. The event lasts all day. It's from 9 to 3. And what we'll be doing is we'll be teaching you self-empowerment tools, how to tie a tie, entrepreneurship, the importance of goal setting, and a slew of other things. It's going to be a really, really great event. And again, that's hosted by the Charlottesville Alliance for Black Male Achievement. And we haven't forgot the ladies. We've been doing some great work with them, and they finally have got their things off the ground. So for anybody who wants to participate in the Female Empowerment Initiative, now known as
100 Black Women of Central Virginia.
all right, so that is, they're meeting the first Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. at City Space. So anybody who wants to help with that, please be aware and please mark it on your calendars. Come on out. So we got stuff going for the girls, the young ladies, the men, the women, the boys, everybody. We're trying to get you to where you need to be. Thank you, Mr. Signer, and the rest of our counselors.
Thank you. Mr. Fenwick?
And I'm going to repeat something that Wes just said. This is the Charlottesville Community Spring Job Fair 2016. That's okay. The 2016 Charlottesville Community Spring Job Fair is fast approaching. Due to the success of last year's job fairs and the community's employment needs, we will be holding another job fair Wednesday, May 11th, 2016, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the John Paul Jones Arena. We are once again anticipating a large turnout excuse me, from employers and job seekers. Employment resources for job seekers, such as help with interviewing skills and resume writing, will be available on site. The 2016 Charlottesville Community Spring Job Fair is being presented by the City of Charlottesville in partnership with the County of Albemarle, the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, American National University, the Adult Learning Center, Piedmont Workforce Network, and the Virginia Workforce Network. For more information, visit www.charlottesville.org/job fair. And I don't know if Captain Pleasance is still here, but this is Cops for Kids Day. The Charlottesville Police Foundation is once again gearing up for its annual Cops for Kids Day, which will be held on Friday, May 13th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Cherry Avenue Boys and Girls Club. On that afternoon, hundreds of kids and dozens of police officers will gather for a fun afternoon of playing together and getting to know each other. The cops run through a bouncy house with the kids, do the limbo, shoot Nerf guns, dance, ride bikes, play cornhole, and eat with them. And all the while, they are breaking down barriers that often exist between young people and the police. Why do we continue to host this event each year? Our simple concept, relational policing. You've heard Chief Longo talk about this, and we hope our new chief will share the same goal. When the police know the people in the community that they serve and the people in the community know the police, there's a level of trust and relationship that surrounds us. This is good for everyone. I wanted you to know about this awesome day and invite you and your families to come join in the fun. All are welcome. Thank you.
You're gonna do the limbo,
I
right?
want to do the limbo.
You and Kathy, Ms. Galvin.
All right, we'll now do a city manager response to matters of the public. Last session we had.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Most of the comments that were made by the public last time centered around the Lee statue in Lee Park and the Blue Ribbon Commission. But there was one issue that Councilor Galvin had brought up. We just wanted to bring you up to speed on that, and that's the maintenance, some of the maintenance issues at CRHA. And the city is providing some assistance with that, some guidance on that, and we'll be working closely with the CRHA administration to help with some turnaround issues that they've been having with maintenance, providing some leadership there, working with contractors and helping to manage some of those projects. So just wanted to provide you with an update on that.
Thank you very much, and I did listen in on the CRHA meeting last week, and it was really gratifying to hear that the connections had been made and that they were making the arrangements. So look forward to hearing the results.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Now we're on to matters by the public. Guidelines for public comment. These are read every meeting. We welcome public comment. It's an important part of our meeting. Time is reserved near the beginning and at the end of each regular city council meeting for matters by the public. Please follow these guidelines for public comment. If you're here to speak for a public hearing, please wait to speak on the matter until the report for that item has been presented and the public hearing has been opened. And we have several public hearings tonight, the sign-up sheets for which are down here. There's 3 of them. And those have been advertised since the agenda was public. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. Please give your name and address before beginning your remarks, and a chime will ring as you get close to the end of your remarks. Green is when you have lots of time, yellow is when you're getting close, and red is when you're getting to the end. Please do not interrupt speakers, whether or not you agree with them. Please refrain from using obscenities. If you cannot follow these guidelines, you'll be escorted from city council chambers and not permitted to re-enter. Louis Schultz.
My name is Louis Schultz. I live at 1809 East Market Street. Both houses of Virginia's legislature passed Senate Bill 43 in this year's session, and on March 11th it was approved by Governor McAuliffe. The purpose of Senate Bill 43 was to amend and reenact Section 24.2-222.1 of the Code of Virginia to include the words, notwithstanding any contrary provisions of a city or town charter, in the portion of the statute that allows a locality to pass an ordinance to hold its council elections in November. The new addition to the text of that statute means that even though Section 5D of Charlottesville's charter explicitly states that council elections are to take place in May of even-numbered years, it will become legal for the city council to pass an ordinance moving council elections to November. That bill will take effect July 1 of this year, a date that is still 2 months away. In an official opinion known as an OAG, Virginia's Attorney General wrote that Virginia follows the Dillon rule of strict construction and that Virginia's Supreme Court has ruled that municipal corporations have only those powers that are expressly granted, those necessarily or fairly implied from expressly granted powers, and those that are essential and indispensable, and that when a local ordinance exceeds the scope of this authority, the ordinance is invalid. That makes a very difficult problem for this city because in 2004, City Council passed an ordinance to add Section 22.35 of Charlottesville City Code, and since 2007, council elections have taken place in November of odd years. That ordinance cited Virginia Code Section 24.2-222.1 as authorization for the change in the elections long before that statute's recent amendment. That is, prior to the addition of the words, notwithstanding any contrary provisions of a city or town charter. That ordinance was therefore invalid at the time of its passage, and we should by law have council elections upcoming this May 3rd, which is tomorrow. In City of South Norfolk versus Dale, Virginia Supreme Court ruled that unless there is a plain indication of an intent that the general act shall repeal the special act will continue to have effect, and the general words with which it conflicts will be restrained and modified accordingly, so that the two are to be deemed to stand together, one as the general law of the land and the other as the law of the particular case. In South and Western Railway Company versus Commonwealth, the court wrote, where there are two statutes, the earlier special and the latter general, the terms of the general broad enough to include the matter provided for in the special, the fact that one is special and the other general creates a presumption that the special is to be considered as remaining an exception to the general, and that the general will not be considered as repealing the special unless the provisions of the general are manifestly inconsistent with those of the special. The recent amendments to 24.2-222.1 has modified that statute to express the General Assembly's intent that from July 1st forward it will take precedence over any contrary charter provisions. It will not take effect retroactively. It will not legalize any past election that took place at the wrong time. Not a single person acting as a councilor tonight was elected as the law requires, and as a consequence of that, it is doubtful that any act of this body carries any legal authority. That is a serious problem which cannot be swept under the rug and which must be addressed immediately.
Thank you. Marnie Slauson. All of you are named Marnie Slauson?
Yes.
I'm just joking.
Okay. Hi. Oh, I don't know if anyone can hear me. Hello. My name is Marnie Slauson. First, I want to say thank you all so much for allowing us to speak here tonight. Hello, City Council members. My name is Marnie Slauson, and for the past couple months, my group of students and I from Monticello High School have been working on a project for which we have been researching the possible installation of cameras on Charlottesville's historic downtown mall. In our extensive research, we have also met with City Council member Bob Fenwick, Detective Blaine Cosgrove, Lieutenant Steve Upman, and Mary Lou Stavini of Tool Jewelers.
Through this research, we have come to the conclusion that it would be beneficial to the City of Charlottesville and the safety of its residents to install these city-owned surveillance cameras on the light fixtures on the downtown mall. Of the proposed possible solutions for these cameras given by the City of Charlottesville Police Department to the City Council, we believe that the first option, to install a camera system, each housing 4 cameras for a total of 36 cameras on the downtown mall would be the best option for our city.
Although this option is the most expensive, with estimated costs of $102,000 starting off and an additional $1,200 each month, this option would provide the best coverage of the downtown mall, resulting in a higher sense of safety for both customers and residents. Additionally, installing cameras in our downtown mall would potentially improve the economy of Charlottesville because it would allow people to feel a greater sense of safety when downtown, which would encourage them to frequently visit the downtown mall and the businesses there.
Although there has been debate over whether these cameras pose a threat to the privacy of citizens, we and those we spoke to about this issue believe that when in a public place, one waives some of their rights to privacy. Also, there would be potentially a 14-day deletion period of these cameras, which would also assert the protection of the citizens' privacy.
Finally, having city-owned cameras would potentially decrease the time it would take to solve crimes, identify suspects, and locate missing people. In cases of missing people such as Hannah Graham, the time is a very important element, and every minute wasted decreases the likelihood of finding the missing person. In conclusion, although minor problems exist in the installation of these cameras, we believe, through our extensive research, that the installation of them would ultimately serve good rather than violate the privacy of citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming. John Cruikshank.
Good evening. My name is John Cruikshank. I live at 324 Parkway Street. On April 20th, 2015, Council passed a resolution which states that City Council is committed to reducing overall pesticide use and eliminating pesticide use where feasible in as many sites as possible, particularly in and on our school grounds and in city parks. I'm here again to ask City Council to make 2016 the year that Charlottesville ends the use of synthetic chemical pesticides in our parks and on our school grounds. Of all the issues that come before you, what can be more important than the health and safety of our children? 1,205 citizens have signed the Sierra Club petition supporting pesticide-free parks and schools. Many people I speak with are surprised that city groundskeepers are still using products such as Roundup Quick Pro, Snapshot, or Azalin and ProStar. I understand that the Department of Parks and Recreation has made efforts to reduce the applications of toxic herbicides. The pollinator garden at the intersection of John Warner Parkway and Melbourne Road is a good example. To achieve our goal, however, it will be necessary in the short run to employ more gardeners. It will cost more. Pulling weeds and mulching does require more labor than spraying and dusting, but it's worth it. I invite each of you to visit the traffic circle at Park Plaza, which is at the northern terminus of 3rd Street Northeast. This garden, which is on city property, city-owned property, is maintained by the North Downtown Residents Association. Last year, this association spent $105 on native perennial plants that attract pollinators. More plants were also transplanted from the Shanks Greenway when that was being closed. Almost all of these plants are now thriving. It takes one person now about an hour a week to weed and mulch this circle. No herbicides are being used there. In August, my granddaughter will begin kindergarten at Clark Elementary School. My grandson will play several times a week at Belmont Park. Please make all the parks and the schools safe for my grandchildren and all of the children in Charlottesville. Thank you.
Thank you. Divin Pernia? Divin Pernia? Okay. Naomi Roberts?
Why don't you hand me the rest?
That's an email that I sent each one of you. I've not received an answer. And I'm looking at you all now, and you're staring back at me. I don't have a script tonight, but I'm upset. We come here meeting after meeting and express our concerns. We all have different concerns. And then when we don't get a response, what are we supposed to do? I'm concerned about my street and the change that's taken place. I've asked for rezoning, but I've got no response. I came in December. I was referred to neighborhood planning. I can't pronounce Mr. Alex's last name, but he was nice enough to come down and talk with me. And he referred it back to you all after you all referred me to him in December. So I come the first week in April, I'm back here again. And then nothing, I sent you an email. I sent you this email. Pay close attention to paragraph 2. Did you not get my email? You know, we come here and we expect answers from you. I worked at the police department for 33 years, and I was told that citizens are our customers. I feel that as taxpayers, I'm your customer. And my lots went up. I know the city needs money. I need money too. But my lot went up $10,000, and my son's went up $11,000, and he works 2 jobs to make ends meet. I'm on a fixed income now. And you want to take my lot and split it? Because if the one next door to me is taken and split, my heat pump is right there almost on the 5-foot line. That means that if it goes bad, how are you going to get down there to fix it if 2 houses, 2-story high, 14 feet wide or 10 feet from mine, and they put a privacy fence down between us. The heat pump on the two stacks, I call them, across the street, the heat pump's on the back porch. So how do they get back there if somebody puts up a privacy fence? I realize that the city is out of money, of land. I can't help that. When those lots were formed, the people that bought them had to buy 2 lots to build a single-story house. Not many of them have basements, a couple of them. And I'm concerned that I don't even get an answer from you all. Since December, you weren't here. I gave you the petition, and I've got no answer.
Thank you. Elizabeth. Thank you. Elizabeth Beasley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here representing the Charlottesville Albemarle Health Department over on Rose Hill Drive. Some of you may already be aware that we are in the process of engaging over 60 organizations in the district to conduct a health assessment of our communities. The end goal is to develop a health improvement plan, and this is our 3rd round doing this. So it's called Map to Health. And here we are in the 3rd round, and it's the phase where we need to ask our community what they think is community themes or strengths, and then also what are impact areas that need more attention. So the month of May is set for that, and I just came tonight to let you all know that we'll be out in the community asking residents' opinion and feedback. The survey is completely confidential. We're not collecting any identifying information, and we just hope that we can take the information back to our council and develop a health improvement plan that improves our community's health. So thank you very much for your support. That's all I came to say.
Ms. Beasley, before you leave, what would be a contact information number or something?
For people who have questions about the survey or the health assessment, they can call me directly. The number is 434-972-6232. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay James.
Good evening, Councilman. My name is Jay James. I live at 169 Brookwood Drive in the city of Charlottesville. I'm here as the Assistant Director of the Bridge Ministry Rehabilitation Program. And just wanted to talk to you all a little bit more tonight, just asking for some special consideration of your discretionary funding. I wanted to talk about our community impact, and I have a testimonial that I brought with me in Mr. Morgan, but just want to quickly talk about a couple of things. You're already aware we work with the indigent, the homeless, things of that nature, our success rate, we've covered that. But I wanted to talk to you more about the fact that over our 22 years here, we have, especially given what Mr. Pleasance received, we've worked directly with Chief Longo, we've worked with detectives in even murder investigations and apprehending suspects, as well as overcoming addictive behavior, drugs in our community. And now with the opiate problems and the different things that are affecting people in our community, we've been working to build our community to help people overcome these challenges for many years, and we're coming back in. We set up intern houses in communities that are drug infested, and the guys in our program will go and encourage dealers to either leave that community or to change what they're doing, and we have that track record as well. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but we're just continuing to ask that you would consider us, because we believe in what we are helping our community to accomplish, to build here. This is William Morgan. He is the owner of Piedmont Paint and Finish. We have a young man who's currently from Charlottesville in a work release program, and William's one of our graduates, and William hired him. And that's a cool, another piece of evidence that just shows what we want to do. So I don't want to take too much time. William.
Yeah, so thanks for giving me your time this evening. You know, when I first went to the ministry many, many years ago, I was a man who was out without hope. I had lost my will to live, and I didn't know where to turn, and I didn't know what to do. And to be honest, I needed help. And the ministry provided that for me. You know, it provided me an opportunity to where I could work on myself and get to some of those deep-rooted issues. It helped me with faith. You know, it helped me with hope. The ministry told me that I was going to be okay, and I believed that. And so once I concluded, I was able to
do some dreams. You know, I went back to school. I got my master's degree. As Jay said, I'm actually the co-owner of this company. We employ 25 to 30 men. We manage those men. And not only are we successful, but we give our services back to the community a few times out of the year, where we provide our services for free to people who are in need. And, you know, I was able to just turn things around. And, you know, the ministry is right here in our own backyard. It's changing lives. It's making a difference. And we would appreciate your continued support. And I thank you for your listening in.
Thanks. I would just conclude before my time. Oh, man. All right. The last thing I would say, guys, thank you for the time. Our executive director, William Washington, who's done this for 22 years, is on the bridge with the Bridge Builders Awards. So,
How much money are you asking for?
we're asking for $64,000, which would support about 3 of what it costs for students that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Hayden?
I don't quite understand the hypocrisy or even the need for this Blue Ribbon Commission. Have we abandoned the core principles of our democracy of majority rules? If so, then your elections are invalid, are they not? You routinely vote for resolutions and other matters on a system of majority rule decisions, yet judging by the competing petitions for and against the removal, with a 10-to-1 majority in favor of keeping them, our system of majority rules somehow doesn't seem to apply. You people don't speak for me. As a matter of fact, you don't seem to speak for the majority. Why is that? Who are you pandering to by not listening to the will of the people? I don't know why you would want this commission to have as part of its charge to involve race. Is it all aspects of race relations, or is it just history? Do we talk about both sides of race relations, or just what you set as the agenda? I've gone to several race relation meetings and hardly anyone shows up. Either they don't care, or maybe they don't think things are as bad as your white guilt leads you to believe it is. I hear this litany of sins alluded to as reasons for this commission, like slavery, Jim Crow, KKK, Vinegar Hill. And I need to remind you that these all were created by Democrats. All of the sins of Vinegar Hill were done by a Democrat administration. The Dialogue on Race, Human Rights Office, and others were created to deal with race-related issues, and adding that as a charge to this commission only bogs down any solutions. Although race is clearly a factor in this decision, you will never get people at the table to come up with a consensus on race relations in a 6-month time frame. So following in the majority rules mindset, let's take this decision away from a liberal cabal and put it in the hands of the people by making this as a ballot initiative on the November elections. You can limit it to Charlottesville and Albemarle County voters as a single referendum question. You put the decision-making back where it belongs, with the voters and the taxpayers. I'm willing to adhere to the vote whichever way it goes. Are you? Please explain why you would object to letting the voters decide this issue.
Thank you. Ida Lewis?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Mr. Jones, members of council, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Ida J. Lewis from 605 13th Street, Northwest, in the city of Charlottesville. Some time ago, I came down because I was concerned because we have no bus service from Great Avenue downtown. It's true we have university bus service, but it's an inconvenience for us to have to ride the university bus to the University Hospital, transfer, and then come downtown. And I was thinking about a solution that maybe would help, since I can't seem to get transportation downtown on the bus. We do have a free trolley. It does go up and down Main Street. It can easily turn down 14th, come on down Grady, and bring us downtown, which would be a big help to us. And I hope that you would take this under consideration and give the people, it's a lot of older people that has to go to 14th or go down to 10th to catch a bus. And like me, I don't know the bus schedule, but maybe they do. But it's very hard and inconvenient for them. So if you would take that into consideration, is give us some bus service down Great Avenue, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Kleeman?
Good evening. My name is Peter Kleeman. I live at 407 Head Street in the city. That's part of the North Downtown area, and the boundary of North Downtown is roughly McIntyre Road. And I was very discouraged to learn of yet another incident on McIntyre Road involving an automobile hitting a pedestrian in that intersection. I have been involved with issues of McIntyre Road for probably 20 plus years, and one of the major issues about the changes to the intersection, now the interchange at McIntyre Road and US 250 bypass, was that there were safety issues at that intersection. And I would very much like to suggest that the council work with VDOT or whomever as partners to do an evaluation of whether, in fact, there are improvements to the safety at that intersection, or whether, in fact, we have a degradation of safety at that intersection. I know from my own personal observations, I travel both on foot and in my automobile on McIntyre Road, and I see many incidents where people are in near collision situations because there's so much traffic at certain times of day that people will jump out into these smaller gaps that allow them to get to wherever they're going. And I see lots of potential road rage situations, and we have in fact had some serious injuries in that corridor, that very small section of road from county office building to US 250 bypass. So I hope you will work with your partners, with the city staff, and do a comprehensive analysis of what the traffic situation is on that now redesigned interchange, and what the safety implications are of those changes. And you will contemplate whether new modifications, signage, whatever reconstruction might be necessary to, in my opinion, make it even safer than it is now, but perhaps safer than what it used to be. I'm afraid that it may have degraded as a result of the so-called improvements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. You want to respond?
Yes, I would. Miss Marnie Slauson, thank you very much for coming out. And tell your teacher I think you all deserve an A.
Oh, thank you.
Now, is there another group of students here tonight? Where are you from? Charlottesville High School? Okay, your teacher will hear this and he'll know that you were actually here. Naomi Roberts, Miss Roberts, I've been over there 3 times, twice on your street, once on the street behind that duplex. And I'll come and talk to you about what the person back there told me. So I'll come and see you. I'm gonna come see you. I can't really hear what you're saying out there, but and I appreciate Jay James coming and giving us a testimonial as to the ministry. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a comment and a question. And I guess I'll direct it to Mr. Jones. I did, when I received Ms. Roberts' email, I immediately contacted the assistant city manager and Mr. Kfuna, asking what was the update, what was the story. Because it appeared to me that the developer was operating under an existing by right condition. And then I did get a response back from Mr. Kfuna saying that what Ms. Ms. Roberts wants is for the city to stop the developer from completing the project, and he said, we can't. It is a by right development. The 35-foot maximum height provision in the ordinance is a bit too high for new infill development in established residential neighborhoods, and he admitted that, but it is currently by right zoning. I bring that up because we really do need to be moving on a review of our codes. We have the code audit pending, but it hasn't started. It's been conditional upon the streets that work. So, Mr. Jones, if we could get an update as to when the code audit will begin and what is the circumstances that the staff needs to kind of look at the city holistically. That's mainly the main thing that I see, that this is related to some of the many other issues that we have that people raise about zoning. But at this point in time, it's my understanding there's nothing we can do about it.
That's correct, unless the council decided you wanted to rezone the
Yeah,
neighborhood.
there's a process that needs to be explained to the public about that. But the other thing is I just would like to underline that I'd love to find out if there's anything we can do for Ms. Ida Lewis's request, and if there's anything that we can do to deal with Mr. Kleeman's observations. Thank you.
And I too I'll just apologize, Ms. Roberts, for not getting back to you. I think we all did read it and we did follow up and didn't make that coming back loop. I think that you and I have talked about this, that it is, what they did is legal and we can't stop them from doing that. And you know, I understand the concern about the property lines, but no one can make you divide your property. So it's not, you know, there's not really a whole lot we can do, I think, short of kind of massive zoning changes, which I don't think we're in a position to do at this moment. So if I had written back to you, it would have been pretty much to say, I heard you, but I'm not, it's not going to change the situation there now. So I'm sorry that I didn't get back to you, because you were very clear that you wanted a response. To Ms. Lewis, I've been pushing for this Grady Avenue bus. Where are you?
She left.
Oh, okay. Since I first heard about it from Mr. Paul Long, who also lives down there, we have the university bus, which is great when the university is in session. There's been some talk about when they don't have available drivers during the break, it doesn't always run, and the issue of it coming downtown is a big issue. I've talked to the transit director about this, and I think a lot of it has to do with funding, and I know that the board or the CAD advisory committee is talking about kind of how we can try to fill in when school's not in session, but that doesn't really get at the downtown, so I agree that I would love to get some sort of report back next time. And congratulations to you students, because all 4 of you managed to keep it under time, which is pretty impressive.
So, okay, we did, okay, Mr. Bellamy? You want to? What? I would just remind everybody, we did pass new procedures where we're all going to defer responses generally to the city manager. And if we all respond for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, it's going to add half an hour to our meetings.
Which
but
we
I
won't.
understand.
Except when they're directed specifically at us, which these were.
I think it's important
but
for
we're
the
going
public
around
to, I think it's important for the public to understand also there was a great deal of discussion in regards to the procedures that were passed, as Mayor Signer was just discussing, and how this may have potentially limited interaction or may stifle public comment. But we have heard from essentially almost everyone who has signed up. Going through the lottery process, we've heard from several different individuals who have been adamant in regards to they want their voices to be heard. And it appears to a certain degree that this process is indeed working. So that was my comment. Ms. Roberts, I'm sure, will be contacting you, and Ms. Ida Lewis will be getting in contact with you very soon. Same for Mr. J. James.
Okay, great. We are now going on to the consent agenda.
Before we go to the consent agenda, I'd just like to add one item for new business at the end of the agenda. I have brought and I shared via email 2 letters to our state senator, or to our U.S. senators about some legislation before the Senate.
Great. Okay, consent agenda. Ms. Rice, would you mind reading it?
Item A, minutes for April 18th. Item B, an appropriation, $200,000 to the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Marriott, Crawford, Inn at Vinegar Hill, and $70,000 to the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund, second of two readings. Item C, an appropriation, Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund for Free Paint Program, $15,000, first of two readings. Item D, an appropriation, loan repayment proceeds from Brown & Brown to the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund, first and two readings. Item E, an appropriation out-of-school time programs grant from the National Recreation and Park Association in partnership with the Walmart Foundation, $15,000, first of two readings. Item F, an appropriation, Domestic Violence Services Coordinator Grant, $47,481, first of two readings. Item G, an appropriation, K-Tech to the K-Tech IT Network Academy Project, $47,194, first of two readings. Item H, an appropriation, Charlottesville City Schools to the CCS Enhanced Entrance Security Project, $50,000, first of two readings. Item I, an appropriation, Albemarle County reimbursement for the Gordon Avenue Library main level restroom renovation, $2,487.50, first of two readings. Item J, a resolution authorization of amendment to lease agreement for 608 Ridge Street, first of one reading. And item K, a resolution revisions to community policy management team appointments, first of one reading.
Any discussion on any of the items? You want to move any of the items off the consent agenda? Okay, a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the items on the consent agenda.
Second motion.
All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, public hearing resolution. This is on a bond issue of $22.75 million. Chris Cullinan, if you could come and present. We're trying to keep this overall agenda item to 10 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Chris Cullinan. I'm the Director of Finance. The city regularly issues bonds as part of its ongoing capital improvements program. The resolution before you this evening represents part of that funding plan approved by council by authorizing the issuance of up to $22,750,000 of bonds. All of the projects to be funded by this bond issue have been previously approved and appropriated by City Council in prior years and or in the FY16 budget. There are two components of this bond issue. The first is new debt for new projects, which totals $8,250,000. These bonds will be paid off over the next 20 years with annual level principal payments. The second portion of the bond issue is to refinance up to $14.5 million of existing debt at lower interest rates. The bonds are planned to be sold in mid-May via competitive sale, with the bonds being awarded to the lowest bidder based on true interest cost. The city management is meeting with the rating agencies this week, and in a slightly different way of doing it this year, they're actually visiting Charlottesville. We had one agency in today. We had another one coming in this Wednesday, and we are confident that the AAA bond rating will be reaffirmed. Staff recommends the council approve this resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the low bid on the bond sale on behalf of the city for a competitive transaction or negotiate the final price with the chosen underwriter for a negotiated transaction. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And as you noted, Mr. Mayor, there's also a public hearing with this.
Questions?
Not one.
Quick question. Do you sell them all at once?
We sometimes do that. We also can sell them as two issues, depending on what the market, which is more favorable to the city, either selling them in one combined package or actually splitting them out between the new issue and the new debt and the refinancing, and that's something we'll see when we actually get to the market day to see what the market's doing in terms of what's the best advantage of the city.
So when you sell them, you put the money in the bank until you spend it?
We get the proceeds and they are invested as we draw them down. In actuality, a good chunk of that money is actually money that we've already spent. We're paying ourselves back, so to speak, for actually having done the project. We issue the debt on a cash flow basis, and so we look at both projects that have been completed and ones that are coming up as well. And so some of that money is actually money that's already been spent, so that goes right back into the city treasury to replenish those funds.
What would that line item be that money came from?
It's just part of the adopted appropriated capital improvements program. It's really you don't necessarily see it in a budget document as opposed to just in terms of the city's internal cash flow, in terms of actually paying for the projects. But the actual dollar amount and the sources of that funding is part of the annual appropriation for the CIP.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to open the public hearing. Ms. Bryce, is there anybody who signed up on it? Okay, public hearing is open. Any comment? Anybody want to stand up and speak to it? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Invite a motion to approve this resolution.
I move that we approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation public improvement bonds of the city of Charlottesville.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Cullinan. Moving on to agenda item number 3, approval of the fiscal year 2016-17 annual action plan. Ms. Tiara Howard.
Hello, my name is Tiara Howard. I'm the grants coordinator for the Department of Neighborhood Development Services, and I'm here seeking approval of the fiscal year 2016-2017 action plan for home and CDBG funds. And then I have another related item right after this that's related to the budget of the action plan. The consolidated plan sets forth goals to support our community development needs over a 5-year period for low and moderate income individuals in the city and counties that make up the planning district. The current 5-year consolidated plan was adopted at the May 6, 2013 City Council meeting. Each year, localities are required to complete an action plan that details goals and objectives to be carried out in the upcoming program year. This is the third action plan of the 2013 to 2018 consolidated plan. This document also serves as the city's application for Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds, and the Thomas Jefferson Planning District's application for home funds. It is due in its final form to HUD on May 13th. On March 8th, 2016, the proposed fiscal year 16-17 CDBG and Home Action Plan / budget came before the Planning Commission for a public hearing. The CDBG and Home Budget / Action Plan had a public hearing which was held at the Water Street Center of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission on April 7, 2016, and an additional public hearing which is being held today. The action plan has been advertised for a 30-day public comment period, March 23rd through April 22nd, before being sent to HUD for approval. The Housing Directors Council had an opportunity to make comments on the action plan at their March 15th and April 19th, 2016 meetings. Comments received from the Housing Directors will be incorporated or have been incorporated into the action plan. The plan is still in draft form pending approval from Council tonight. Following approval of the action plan, data will be entered into the HUD database, which will then create a final formatted version of the action plan. The participation section of the action plan summarizes all community engagement efforts as well as all comments received and incorporated into the plan. Budgetary impact. The home program requires the city to provide a 20% match with the approval of this action plan. The sum necessary to meet the fiscal year 16-17 match is $11,641.40, which will need to be appropriated out of the Charlottesville Housing Fund at a future date. The action plan will have no additional budgetary impacts. Recommendations. Staff recommends approval of the 16-17 action plan of the 2013/2018 consolidated plan. Funds will not be available or eligible to be spent until HUD releases funds. There are no alternatives proposed, and then you have the attachment, which is the annual action plan.
Okay, any questions?
I do have a question. So, and I was looking for the actual name of it to make the answer easier, but I can't find it off the top of my head. There are several actual, actions outlined in this, of things that are expected to happen between now and next year using these funds, should they be appropriated. And there's a report that's due to HUD that gives an evaluation of the ones from last year. Mm-hmm. And because I noticed there were, every year there are specific things that are supposed to happen. And we don't get that report. So we approve this, which I'm perfectly happy to do. But I tried to find a copy of that report that was sent to HUD, and I could not find it. I didn't try for a long time, but it wasn't easy to find. Okay. Can you tell me how to find that? And
you can contact me, and actually...
But how could a member of the public find it?
We can put it online.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Your recommendation to put it online. We can do that.
I'd appreciate it, because I think we do these plans, and I think it's really helpful to not only hold ourselves accountable, but just so the public can know that, hey, wow, they did those things. It's not just something on a piece of paper.
And we're also revising the CDBG code, and you'll see it maybe in June. Okay. We're working on that. And basically the code's outdated, and we're required to report It's called the CAPER Consolidated
That's it.
Annual Performance Report.
Yes.
Evaluation report, and that, we're recommending that we, present that when we set priorities, because it's due around the same time
Terrific.
that we set priorities, so you should be seeing that hopefully within the next couple of years, but I can get that online.
Okay, well, I don't need it in order to vote on this, but I do want it at some
Okay.
point. Thank you.
What else?
I make a motion that we approve the action.
Well, we've got to go.
Oh, is there
do a
here?
public
I'm
hearing.
sorry,
Yep.
I take it back.
And we've got, just so everybody knows, we've got actually 4 different items coming up here with another, there's no other hearing, but, okay. All right, so we're opening up, thank you. All right, we're opening a public hearing on this matter right now, and I don't think anybody signed up. Anyone want to speak to it from the floor? Going, gone? Okay. Public hearing is closing. Is there a motion to approve resolution for the annual action plan?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to item number 4 now.
Okay, and this item usually goes on the consent agenda, but since I was here, I was like, and it goes together with the action plan, might as well present. So basically, I am seeking approval for the budget allocations that actually go with the action plan. And basically, in your attachment, you'll see the budget allocations, what was approved by Planning Commission or recommended by Planning Commission. And basically, that's the priority neighborhood from CDBG funds, recommended that $243,128.44 be used for the 10th and Page priority neighborhood the next round. CIC Community Investment Collaborative Scholarships, $12,500. Seed Planters Women Entrepreneur Academy, $10,000. Office of Economic Development Small Business Development ACE Program, $12,000. For public service projects, these have a cap of 15%. Based upon our entitlement that we received for next year. So OAR Reentry Services, Task Force recommended $14,856. United Way Child Care Subsidies, $14,106. Office of Economic Development Go Driver Program, $12,021. City of Promise and Road to Launch Child Care Access Program, $9,857. Community Attention Youth Internship Program, $4,856. And then, of course, Planning and Admin has a 20% cap, so $74,261. And then you can see the grand total, which is $407,585.44. For home, the Task Force and Planning Commission provided a recommendation to provide AHIP with, it's $58,207 that we're actually estimated to receive from HUD. But that also is, has to be matched, so it's a total of $69,849. And all of these recommendations have gone through the community engagement process. The task force provided, evaluated the proposals, and they provided a recommendation to Planning Commission, and then Planning Commission is now recommending this proposed budget to you, and they're all in line with the consolidated plan goals as well as council's priorities.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just have one question. How were the funds allotted, or how was the amount determined?
So in your notes, the task force, they basically used an evaluation scoring tool to evaluate the projects. And then based upon the scores, then they then made decisions about allocations. And as you know, as you can see, public services has a cap of the actual entitlement. So 15% of $371,309 is what can be allocated for public services. And then admin and planning has a cap. And then the SAT made recommendations on economic development projects because council provided a set aside for economic development projects. And so basically the task force determines the allocations and the percentages and the amounts. And then once we get our actual final estimate from HUD, basically all of the categories get reduced equally. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will say that I am on the steering committee of City of Promise, but I don't think that will taint my vote on this matter.
I do have a question about the,
Mr. Fenwick, Ms. Galligan?
sorry, and it is specifically about the launch program, because I'm reading about the discussion and the scoring, and it did say that the group felt that the City of Promise child care program needed to see more detail. And they reduced the score for past performances, spending deadlines, and outcomes have not been met to date. Could you please explain that?
So when the task force reviews the proposals, there's an evaluation tool that's used to evaluate, in which all of the applicants were able to see that up front after their workshop. And so basically, in addition to being able to meet previous performance, consistency with the consolidated plan, there's an array of categories on that evaluation tool. And so you may score lower on one category than another category. And so basically what the information, the minutes are saying is that they scored low in that section because they hadn't spent all of their money. There's a certain percentage that you have to spend by a certain amount of time. And so they scored low because they hadn't spent that percentage by the time when the task force was reviewing the proposals.
And any idea how many children and households are benefiting this?
So yes, in each section here, in the actual agenda, it breaks down the housing projects. So for AHIP, it says that estimated benefits include 5 homeowner rehabs. For the economic development projects, you can see that the CIC, C Planners, and Office of Economic Development, the estimated benefits are that scholarships, technical assistance, and business support services would be provided to an estimate of 12 qualified Charlottesville businesses and at least 20 entrepreneurs. And then for the public service projects, you'll see a breakdown as well. So estimated benefits include helping 5 youth gain workforce readiness skills, helping at least 2 adults with direct employment training, providing child care subsidies for up to 3 families, providing supportive services around accessing quality child care for 20 children, and helping 150 recently released offenders with supportive services.
I was just interested in the child care program. So I couldn't find that information. There's a lot of information here.
A somewhat related question. First, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, not just staff work, but community work. And for anybody still listening or watching, this is how the money gets distributed to organizations like OAR, United Way, City of Promise, Community Attention. So it's very important, and thank you for the work that you've done. My question is, in the minutes, in any kind of a deliberative situation, you're going to have disagreements. And once or twice I saw the information was not timely or it was incomplete, and they referenced like we talked about last year. So when you're getting to the end of this process, do you ever add say a single sheet of lessons learned so that the next time you do this operation, you can just pick right up where you left off?
We have a lot of lessons learned for next year. Actually, the group has talked about, and when I say the group, I'm talking about the SAT, Strategic Action Team, and the task force. They're the ones who make funding recommendations. And so there had been discussions about, blips in the actual process, the application process, and how those can be ironed out so that expectations are clear on both sides and that everything is consistent. And so we're going to be working on actually improving the application process and hopefully maybe getting it online so that, the format and everything's just consistent to make it easier for them to evaluate the proposals.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, so a couple motions, and then these were questions on both. Is everyone good with questions on all matters? Okay, so motion to approve CDBG appropriations.
Second.
I'll move that.
So moved.
First motion, who did it? Okay, second, Mr. Fenwick. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Motion to approve home funds appropriation.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, or any questions? All in favor? Oh, you don't even need a vote.
Mr. Mayor, the first 2 items were first of 2 readings.
That was first.
Oh, so no vote on that first one, but the third one is a vote.
The third one is a vote. So on the first 2, we didn't even need a vote. Okay.
Good.
On the third, a motion to approve the resolution for reprogramming of funds.
So
I'll
moved.
move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Okay, now this one we do vote on. Any, okay, all in favor? 5-0. The flag is in the way for me, so okay, 5-0. All right,
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Thanks.
mission accomplished, thank you. All right, item number 5 has been removed from the agenda because of an administrative issue. So we'll be revisiting that in the future one. Item number 6, abandonment of sanitary sewer and slope easements. Craig Brown is going to be presenting to us on this, and we will have a public hearing on this matter also.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this agenda item is a proposed ordinance with an accompanying public hearing that would authorize the abandonment of sanitary sewer and slope easements on property at the corner of Ridge Street and Cherry Avenue for a proposed development known as William Taylor Plaza. This is an approved PUD. There are existing city sanitary sewer lines on this site which will have to be relocated as a result of the development. New easements have already been dedicated to the city. If this is approved by council, these are live sanitary sewer lines, so they will remain operable until the new sewer lines are constructed and inspected and accepted by the city. So it is offered tonight on first reading. There's also a small slope easement along the property on the Cherry Avenue side that is also subject to this abandonment. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
There were a couple of quick things that I just happened to be following on Facebook as some folks were talking about this, and there was the thought that we were sort of giving something to a developer that we wouldn't otherwise do, and just wanted to clarify that the developer has to build new lines, and that the old lines won't be closed until they have at their own expense put in new lines. And that's, I assume, what the quitclaim deed is about, is that this agrees to it, but it doesn't actually let go of those easements for the existing lines until the new ones are built and approved.
Right, we will be getting, without charge, new sanitary sewer infrastructure through this site.
So we're actually coming out ahead because we would have eventually had to replace those lines.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. It doesn't appear that anybody has signed up for it. Anybody want to speak to this issue in the crowd? Okay, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
And this is, we just need a second.
Second.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 7. This is a special use permit for 750 Hinton Avenue. Carrie Rainey.
Good evening, Carrie Rainey, City Planner with Neighborhood Development Services.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Here today to speak about a special use permit request at 750 Hinton Avenue. Hinton Avenue United Methodist Church by Sue Woodson, its trustee chair, has submitted a special use permit request to allow elementary school education and daycare uses on its property located at 750 Hinton Avenue, identified on City Real Property Tax Map 58 as Parcel 161, hereby known as the subject property. Subject property also has additional street frontage on Church Street and Rialto Street. No additions to the existing buildings or additional buildings are proposed. An outdoor fenced play space approximately 50 feet by 50 feet is proposed between the existing building and the existing parking lot. The Planning Commission discussed this matter at their April 12, 2016 meeting. The topics of discussion for the Commission focused on traffic concerns during drop-off and pickup activities, appropriate hours of operation for the proposed uses, Pedestrian safety between the subject property and the main International School of Charlottesville's campus at 830 Monticello Avenue. Proper installation and maintenance of the proposed playground equipment, and whether existing trash concerns regarding the subject property will be multiplied by the proposed uses. The Planning Commission held a joint public hearing with City Council as well on April 12, 2016. Several members of the public came out to speak. Concerns included drop-off and pickup traffic, the trash issues mentioned before about the subject property, in addition to the concerns about the playground equipment. Several members of the public expressed support for the idea, noting that it was a win-win for the community and also for the church. The applicant held a community meeting on February 23, 2016 at the subject property, at which staff attended. Property owners within 500 feet of the subject property in the Belmont Carlton Neighborhood Association were notified of the meeting. However, no notice recipients attended the meeting. Additionally, the applicants from the International School of Charlottesville attended the Belmont Carlton Neighborhood Association meeting on April 11, 2016. Subsequent to that meeting, the association, by way of an email from the president to the Planning Commission, stated that after careful consideration by the board and the membership, it is our opinion to support the request for the special use permit. The commission took the following action. Ms. Green moved to recommend approval of this application for the special use permit in the R1S zone at Hinton Avenue to permit daycare and elementary school uses with the list of conditions that are provided in attachment A. The recommended conditions focus on maximum permitted students, limitations to hours of operation, and procedures for drop-off and pickup. Mr. Kiesecker seconded the motion. Council voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the special use permit.
The Planning Commission, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the special use permit. And I'm happy to read the attachment A, which specifically lists out the conditions if you would like. In addition, I'd like to note that Mr. Eric Anderson with the International School at Charlottesville is here to speak to you today as well, as you would like.
I think the conditions would be helpful. It's not
Sure.
that long. Is that all right?
Condition number 1, no more than 48 students may attend daycare and elementary school at 750 Hinton Avenue location. An increase in students will require a new special use permit. The permitted hours of operation for the daycare and elementary school uses are 8:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. An expansion of hours or days of operation will require a special use permit. A safety plan for the daycare and elementary school uses must be submitted annually to the zoning administrator for approval and kept on file. The main drop-off and pickup activities shall occur in the parking area of the subject property. A trash removal plan shall be submitted annually along with the safety plan to the zoning administrator for approval and kept on file. Playground equipment shall be installed per manufacturer's specifications and for so long as it remains on the subject property shall be maintained based upon the specifications. The playground equipment shall be located as shown in the location map provided by the applicant, shown as Exhibit C1 as provided by the applicant, and as shown on the following page of Attachment A. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and as I noted before, Eric Anderson is here to speak with you as well.
Any questions?
No, I was actually at the planning commission meeting when they were being grilled of sorts, so I thought you all answered all of the questions. Very pleased to see this getting off the ground and underway.
I just have a comment, Mayor Signer, that I'm just very happy to see additional daycare coming to the city.
The applicant like to say anything?
Good evening, counselors. My name is Eric Anderson. I'm the head of school at International School of Charlottesville. I'm joined by Heather Hill, who is the chair of our Building Transition Committee. On behalf of the school, I just want to thank you all, and on behalf of the church as well, I want to thank you for your consideration of our application for this permit for the Hinton Avenue Methodist Church. As outlined in the application, We are applying for official permission to allow a limited number of late preschool and early elementary education classes to be conducted on the premises weekdays from approximately 8:45 until approximately 3:15. We are pursuing this permit because our school has been experiencing steadily increasing demand for our holistic and nationally accredited language immersion education for young children, presumably in part as ever more globally minded Charlottesville citizens recognize the value of an education that empowers children to build bridges to and embrace a better understanding of peoples from diverse cultures. For the last 2 school years, demand has significantly exceeded our capacity, and our current location in the Belmont Baptist Church, 4 blocks away on Monticello Avenue, constrains not only the number of students that we can serve, but also the socioeconomic diversity of our student body. Approval of this permit would enable us to serve up to 48 more students each year, to develop a more robust financial aid program, and to serve a greater cross-section of young people to bring to fruition a partnership we've been working to develop with the Virginia Bright Stars pre-K program. And finally, to advance our school's financial health as we pursue more long-term goals to create a custom-designed building on a campus of our own. Currently, the education wing of the church is utilized for only a handful of generally intermittent daytime activities throughout the week, including a clothing closet and collection of emergency relief supplies. And we believe that the services that ISC would provide there will provide a revitalizing daytime complement to the activities and services currently found in the neighborhood, with only minimal potential inconvenience that we have already developed plans to mitigate. Educational activities for young children during the weekdays would complement the vibrant nightlife that now exists in Belmont, and an expansion of educational services for children as young as age 2 would complement the K-4 primary education at nearby Clark Elementary School. For the Hinton Avenue Methodist Church, the revenues from the terms of our lease will provide revitalizing funds to enable pursuit and expansion of valuable church missions like their clothing closet and Sunday soup kitchen for low-income families, and also help them to address some important and long-awaited improvements to their beautiful and historic building. Through this process of applying for this permit, and in concert with Charlottesville's Planning Commission and Belmont Carlton's Neighborhood Association, we've been able to explore and develop some possible solutions to concerns that have been raised around the minor traffic impacts of this endeavor and the appearance and safety of the play space that will be situated on Hinton Avenue between the front of the building and the parking lot. Between the adjustments and fixes that have been identified in this process and our commitment to continued partnership with the BCNA, we feel confident that the presence of this little school on this section of Hinton Avenue will be a win-win-win for the church, the school, and the neighborhood. And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Hull, do you want to say anything? Okay. All right. Any questions for anybody out of all this?
Just, it's going to be a statement question. Great to have more childcare up there, like Kathy said. It's really needed, and you did a good job.
Okay. Motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Or I guess we have to read it? No, it's in the materials.
Mayor, I can read that. Mayor Signer, I move that we adopt the resolution granting a special use permit to Hinton Avenue United Methodist Church to operate a daycare center with elementary school uses for up to 45 children on property at 7750 Hinton Avenue.
I think it's 48 children.
Well, that's right. The title was,
yeah.
So, correct that to 48.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we are on to item number 8, BAR appeal, attic addition at 513 14th Street Northwest. Mary Jo Scala and Melanie Miller will be presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Mary Joyce Scala, Preservation and Design Planner. I'm here tonight to present the staff report for the appeal of a BAR decision at 513 14th Street Northwest. And the BAR decision was to deny a rear addition to this building. After I present my staff report, the applicant will make a presentation, and then the BAR's position will be presented by the current chair of the BAR, Melanie Miller. At their March 15th, 2016 meeting, the BAR denied by a vote of 4-2 with 1 abstaining, an application to add a rear addition to a circa 1925 contributing structure, brick building located in the Rugby Road University Circle Venable Neighborhood Architectural Design Control District. And the reason they denied it was because it does not satisfy the BAR's criterion guidelines because of its size and is not compatible with this property and other properties in the ADC district. The motion is worded very specifically that way because the BAR criteria requires that they shall approve an application unless it finds that the proposal does not meet specific standards and applicable provisions of the guidelines. And also, number 2, they have to approve it unless they find that the proposal is incompatible with the architectural character of the district. So in terms of the standards, there are a couple that are very pertinent. The first one is whether the material, texture, color, height, scale, mass, and placement of the proposed addition, modification, or construction are compatible with the site and the applicable design control district. The other one is number 4, the effect of the proposed change on the historic district neighborhood. And then the very pertinent guidelines are the first one under additions, function, and size. And that says that you should limit the size of the addition so it does not visually overpower the existing building. There's another one under design that says the new work should be differentiated from the old and should be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. In their discussion, some of the points made, some members thought that the proposed design was appropriately detailed and resolved, but that the maximum zoning envelope allowed by zoning was not compatible with that ADC district. Certain members noted the addition tripled the size of the house. I think that's important, that it set a bad precedent and that none of the other houses in the area had additions like this, and the neighborhood would be drastically changed if every building would be done like this. It's important to note that certain members urged the applicant to reconsider the massing and resubmit with a smaller footprint, possibly reducing the footprint by 1/3, so it would be compatible. And then the 2 dissenting BAR members noted that first, the addition was not impactful from the street, and secondly, that the original intent of the zoning, which is university medium density, was to encourage density near the university to protect other low-density residential areas. And I'll say more about the zoning in a minute. The applicant indicated they were not interested in considering the suggestion. They said the design was within their zoning rights. In response to that, I would say that the BAR has received, has work sessions, received counsel from the city attorney's office, and they know that they must balance 2 sets of directions. First, there is the general zoning, and that's what the applicant was referring to when they said they were within their zoning rights. But then there's also the overlay historic district, and that's as important as the underlying zoning. So ideally, you would want that zoning and the guidelines to mesh. It doesn't always, it frequently doesn't. And so then, in that case, the BAR has to make the determination as fairly and consistently as possible about those criteria that I mentioned. So I did want to point out that the zoning to UMD, when that was put in place in 2003, council also directed staff at the same time to look at placing the historic district on 14th and 15th Street. They are aware that there could be conflicts, but they went ahead and adopted the ADC district in January 2006. So the BAR was within their jurisdiction to discuss the overall size and massing of the addition. In staff opinion, the BAR is correct in its finding that the proposed addition does not meet the standards and guidelines related to size and mass, and that the proposed addition is incompatible with the architectural character of the ADC district, and the City Council should uphold the BAR's decision. If an alternative would be that you could overturn the BAR's decision or uphold it. If you decide to overturn it, then I would say that you should stipulate the applicant should return to the BAR for approval of unresolved items which may include a landscape plan, window specifications, and eave details. Note that in either case, in addition to obtaining a certificate of appropriateness, the applicant must also apply for site plan approval. They have talked to staff, but they have not applied for site plan approval yet. So there may be other items such as parking requirements, buffer areas, things like that, that get resolved with the site plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I do have a couple questions. When I was reading over the packet, on March 15, 2016, the staff recommendations were as follows: that the porch removal was not a problem, that the addition was well located to minimize its visual impact, and the one comment was that it shouldn't share a roof line. Reading later, I understand the applicant did address that.
I listened to the entire tape, and I think the applicant was in agreement about lowering the roof line. There is a specific guideline that says that the addition should not be at the same height or higher than the main building.
So the applicant did lower that.
Just step down a little, same with the eave. The eave should be a little bit lower, and I believe they had that discussion, and he was agreeable to that.
Okay. And then the last question is, can the BAR make recommendations based on zoning density?
I don't really understand your question. I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's a zoning density is often sometimes associated with size, but there was some discussion in the packet that actually talked about whether this was too dense of a project.
I don't remember them talking about density at the meeting. I remember them talking about the mass of the building and the size of the building.
But in any event, though, density is not a standard of review for the BAR.
They don't get into that. They sometimes are asked, if there's a special use permit application, they're asked to advise on density in terms of how it would impact visually the building. But they don't really get into that. They don't get into traffic, things like that. They're just talking about what their guidelines cover, which is the exterior design of the building.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of the same question. I thought you were going to go exactly where I went, but mine was a little different, which was that in your initial staff report to the BAR, as Councilor Galvin said, you said that it seemed appropriate. And then in your recommendation to us tonight, basically saying that we should uphold the BAR. And is that, I know that we wouldn't have a BAR if things weren't kind of a judgment call. So is your recommendation tonight just saying that they are within their rights, or is that something that staff is very supportive of, or can you?
I'm completely supportive of them. I would like to clarify my recommendation in the staff report. I guess the BAR is used to me, but what I usually do is try to hone in on the issues so that they don't discuss everything. The meetings go on and on. So what I do is something is really egregious, I would point to that. Or if it's very well done, if it's clear cut, I might say I recommend approval. I rarely say I recommend approval or disapproval. Things just aren't that cut and dried usually. So what I do is, and I think I did it here, was make it pretty clear that for instance, the removal of the rear porch would not diminish the character. The proposed addition is larger than the original building, but is well located to minimize its visual impact. The addition should not share a roof line with the original building. So those things, I think, are very neutral kind of in tone. And then the suggested motion makes it sound like I'm recommending approval, but the motion, we don't do alternative motions like City Council and
Yes
Planning
or no.
Commission. It's all kind of combined in one. They use it as a prompt. So I guess in a case like this, I would imagine that they might approve it with modifications. And that was kind of what I was anticipating. So they would kind of read along there and kind of fill in the blanks as they wanted to.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Okay.
Mr. Bellamy? No? Okay, the applicant?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for hearing the appeal tonight. I'm Kurt Wassenaar. I'm an architect here in Charlottesville, and I'm representing the owner, Mr. Bonner, on this property. I wanted to start by saying that as a former many year, I think 8+ year member of the Board of Architecture Review and as chairman for 6 or 7 years, I understand the nature of the process that we're going through and how unusual it is to overturn a BAR recommendation like this. But I felt strongly in this case that this was one that was worthy of some additional discussion because of the way that the project unfolded. And I wanted to start by just giving you a couple of reasons why we think this is one of the ones that you should strongly consider to overturn. And I will start by saying that I think the staff actually got it right the first time. And if you look at the discussion that was had by the BAR, we started out by acknowledging that the zoning code is the foundational sort of starting point as an architect and designer by what we do. It's the set of rules that defines the setbacks, the heights, the nature of what we do, and if those rules don't apply, one is sort of left floating around in space without a clear idea. The UMD zoning is pretty clear about this, and almost everybody who's done work in the neighborhood has followed the zoning fairly carefully, and we tried to do the same thing. So the building completely fits within the zoning envelope, and we were very careful to make sure that it did so. Secondly, it's important to note that as you consider the beginning of this project, you really can't see the addition at all from 14th Street. The building is set back completely. We followed the National Park Service guidelines on insetting the building immediately behind its primary mass so that it really can't be read at all from the 14th Street side. The heights, there were some good suggestions by the BAR. I thought they were fair in their consideration, and we don't have any problem at all. In fact, I think the design was improved by their comments relative to the roof line and also the inset of the eave line at the inset that we did immediately behind the board. So we're in agreement with those. Those were improvements to design, and we don't have any problem following those at all in a resubmission. When you start to look at the design guidelines implied by the BAR's list under 34276, it's pretty clear that the focus of the design exercise once one has started with the zoning is to then conduct the design of the building in an appropriate manner. And we were very careful about the windows, materials, and if you read the transcript, neither staff nor the BAR really had any significant comments at all other than the ones that were mentioned about the building, its design, and in fact they were complimentary about the work that had been done on the project, that it fit the neighborhood and it was appropriate within that context. So as I read through 34276, as an architect, I'm left struggling to figure out how, if you follow the rules and you follow the design guidelines and you follow the general accepted practices outlined by the National Park Service guidelines, and you come up with a project that for all intents and purposes meets all of the pieces, you don't obtain at least some semblance of a reasonable approval for a certificate of appropriateness. And we were left sort of figuring out what's going on here, and these were raised by Ms. Scala relative to the comments of the board, or at least 2 members or 3 members of the board, relative to the zoning density. The issue really comes up with the zoning density if you look at the character of the neighborhood, the historical guidelines, the focal points that the staff in its secondary review raised. The addition exists within an alleyway, effectively. If you walk down that alley, you will realize that it is surrounded by large 3.5-story apartment buildings to its rear, and that probably half of the structures in that alley are a hodgepodge of additions that have been done exactly like this building, on the side, on the back, in various configurations, and not nearly as nice as this building. So if one wants to talk about a precedent, as an architect, I would say this actually should be a precedent for how you do an alley design in a UMD zoning district in an appropriate way. And we're here today to try to bring a really quality project that meets the intent of the zoning and the city's master plan and strategic plans in a way that makes some sense. I find it really difficult to look at the quality of the buildings in the alley and the randomness of what was built all around it, and to see how we had in any way disrupted the historic fabric of that alley or the configuration. And I guess I have an issue with that just subjectively. It's not my place to do that, that's the BAR's, but I think it's what I'm asking you to look at least in part, for how this was viewed. I think what really got me concerned a little bit was the fact that, as one of the members said during the discussion about this, they really had a problem with the zoning density and the fact that the zoning allows higher density student housing in this area, which is part of what the UMD zoning is designed to do. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for the BAR as a interpretive body to take a look at that density and say, gee, we think it's too much or it's historically inappropriate or whatever. But it really violates the spirit of what the BAR and the zoning code are about. The zoning code is a legislative action that you as council take in order to support a basic set of rules about what a developer and an architect can design and build. Number of units, setback, parking. Those are the rules that we have to start with. And there shouldn't be sort of a backdoor process where the BAR has an argument about the zoning and it attempts to do that through making an example of a project, which is frankly what we felt happened in this instance. I don't think it was malicious. I think it was well intentioned by the board, but I think it was misdirected in terms of how this process unfolded. My suggestion would be that if the BAR has a problem with the zoning or the density, those may be perfectly reasonable questions to ask. It may well be that the historic fabric of that neighborhood is disadvantaged by the density of the zoning. The appropriate format for that is for the BAR to recommend to the city council that they open a legislative action to consider the zoning and to change the strategic plan and the comprehensive plan, and to do it in that manner, which is prescribed by law, so that we get to a result that architects like me can design around without being deeply confused by what the intention of either the zoning code or the BAR is about. So I mean no malice to the BAR. I will finish simply by saying that the last thing I feel about it is I spent many, many years of my life helping to develop and support the design guidelines in this community. And it's sad for me to see a scenario unfold in which a very well-directed and well-intentioned scenario by the board kind of goes off the rails and in fact undermines what we're trying to do as architects and designers and members of this community to bring quality projects to the community, to these areas that follow the rules. If we don't have a basic set of rules, it's very hard to function as designers. And for that reason, and with all sympathy to the BAR, I urge you to support the staff's original motion and intent, which is to support this application, and to, hopefully if you find it of merit, begin a process to reconsider the zoning through the regular process that the city council might go through. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? I think we're going to take a break before we get to Ms. Miller's presentation because we're past 9 o'clock. So we'll take a, but if there are any questions now, I think it will make sense. Well, okay. All right. Thank you very much. So let's take a 5-minute break. Back in our seats in 5 minutes. And there are lots of cookies down here in Miss Akos again.
They're not pretty, but they're
not pretty, but tasty. 10 minutes we're extending to. Melanie Miller, BAR.
Good evening, counselors. First, I wanted to start with an explanation of how the packets work in the staff report. If you want to look through any past meeting and go through all of our packets, you'll see that almost never can you tell what staff is instructing the BAR to do. Mary Joy presents the information very neutrally, and then she leaves it to the BAR to make a decision. So you're right, in this case, she didn't recommend for this not to be approved, but you'll have trouble finding a packet where she does recommend for something to be denied. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the zoning issue. So yes, the proposed addition apparently meets the criteria set in the zoning map, but this building is also within an architectural design control district, which is also a function of zoning. So it needs to meet the zoning criteria in terms of setback and size, but it also needs to gain a certificate of appropriateness from the BAR. So just like the BAR can't trump zoning and say you can have a smaller setback, et cetera, the prescribed zoning doesn't matter unless the addition can gain a certificate of appropriateness from the BAR. So the two things have to work together. And what is unique to this property is the size of the proposed addition is enabled to be larger on a technicality that may have been in, that is because the owner of the property owns adjacent properties and so is able to utilize parking on the adjacent properties and build all the way out where parking would otherwise have to occupy. So this lot size wouldn't allow an addition of this size if this was the only thing owned by the owner, if that makes sense. And that's mentioned in the packet. So in 2003, the current zoning was actually adopted in the historic district. In 2006, like Mary Joy said, it was acknowledged at the time that some of the principles were in conflict. But the idea was to allow density near the university overall, but protect the neighborhood around the school and within the ADC district. Kind of a quid pro quo, like we're maximizing the density, but we're also going to take a look at it through the BAR when things come forward. So if you think about the zoning map, it's like the large chunks of color are applied with a wide brush. The zoning map doesn't go parcel by parcel, that's spot zoning. And the zoning doesn't do a particular property or even a particular street, it's a big chunk. And then the finer detail is assigned to the BAR to paint. So we're tasked with using a tiny brush. We walk the area, we gain an understanding of it, and then we have to interpret the guidelines as they apply to that tiny little spot on the bigger map. So I would present that whether or not members of the BAR agree with zoning is irrelevant in this case and in every other. We're tasked with interpreting the guidelines and applying them to a particular case, and so it doesn't matter if you agree. And in fact, I would argue that many members probably do agree with that large chunk of color on the zoning map, that this makes sense for an area to be dense. The BAR members, who are appointed by you, are to determine if the application meets the guidelines, which are also adopted by you, and the proposed addition does not meet the guidelines. Since we're short on time, I won't go back over them. Mary Joy did, but I will explain how we feel like it doesn't meet the guidelines. The addition will visually overpower the building, and a number of mature trees will likely need to be removed. We weren't provided a landscape plan, but just standing in the alley, you can see The handicap ramp is existing where mature trees are now, and so it will be much more visible than the street once the trees are gone. The addition is not compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and, importantly, its environment. It triples the size of the home, and it's incompatible with massing, size, and scale of the houses on this block and those in the surrounding blocks. The value and the size and expense of potentially removing this addition later would basically make it impossible to remove. So it doesn't meet the criteria regarding if additions or alterations were removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the building would be unimpaired. And overall, it doesn't meet our second criteria, which asks if it's compatible with the historic, cultural, architectural character of the Rugby Road Venable Neighborhood District. So massing, size, and scale were clear issues throughout the discussion of the meeting. Actually, I was out of town, so I didn't get an opportunity to officially vote on it, but have reviewed the video. And the applicant was clear from the very beginning that the massing was non-negotiable. It was said right at the beginning of the meeting that there's no debate, that it will just be appealed to council. And so because it was clear the massing wasn't going to be approved, I don't think the BAR got into the details of detailing and the same kind of thing we do with an application that's heading for approval. And I just wondered if anybody has had a chance to walk around this house and neighborhood since this has landed in your packets. So you kind of know, I provided some pictures, but for anybody that wasn't able to walk it, this is definitely not the 14th Street of Wirtland corner. It's very different. And so there's some pictures of what that looks like down there with lots of huge additions and giant apartment buildings. This is 4 blocks from Preston Avenue. And unlike 14th Street near the corner, it's filled with single-family homes. So while it's clear these homes are currently housing students, the houses themselves are intact, which are pages 2 and 3, show some pictures of that. Along West Main Street, the BAR has recently approved 1,549 new bedrooms. 595 are now available, and the next 342 come online in August. So if students should eventually turn this neighborhood back over to the people of Charlottesville, the houses on this block could once again house families. The homes are still homes, and they haven't been spoiled. And neighborhoods change. My neighborhood was originally built as a single family with single family homes, but times changed. People were able to live in the county and commute into the city for work. Suburbia was trendy and downtowns were dead. So people left the neighborhood, houses got run down, they got divided into apartments and then into boarding houses, and then times changed again. All of a sudden downtown living was once again cool and desirable, and so people started moving back, and the divisions for apartments could be taken away, and the deadbolts off all the bedroom doors could be filled in and removed, and once again they can be single-family homes. And for the most part they are, but I included a picture of a house where a giant duplex was added as an addition, which I think is a funny thing. The code audit might want to look at what's considered an addition. And this house, the values have risen in the neighborhood, and so the property owner said, hey, great time to sell. But it turns out nobody wanted to buy that house. They reduced the price by over $100,000, and nobody wanted to buy the house because the duplex is too expensive to remove, and it fills up the entire backyard, and it devalues the house overall.
We're close. We've gone over the
Okay.
for a few minutes.
But to be fair, you know. So Charlottesville can't grow, and we are limited in perpetuity by our borders, and we don't have a lot of lots left, so our single-family home stock can't grow either. If you stand on the front steps of 513 14th Street Northwest, you can see Venable Elementary, and behind the house is the quaint alley. There's pictures of it in the attachment. And on each side you can see outbuildings and backyards. And actually I disagree that this alley is a mess. I think it's really cool and it's a great place to walk and enjoy. And this whole neighborhood could easily be for, you know, regular non-student people of Charlottesville. The Gordon Avenue Library is right there. Venable is literally a half block away, and you can go to Preston Avenue and get cookies from Breadworks. So you're probably under pressure to overturn the BAR decision. And while we all want Charlottesville to grow and thrive, but I think standing up for the neighborhoods and telling the developer not on this lot does not preclude us from further development. As long as developers can make money here, they'll be here. And upholding the decision helps us keep the city special. And keeping the city special is what keeps developers here and investing in our community. So that's what I'm asking you to do tonight. Are we that desperate for 8 more bedrooms when we just have 1,500 being approved? So gaining 8 rooms here is not worth spoiling a neighborhood, because after all, if you overturn the BAR here, then what happens next door and across the street and 2 doors down? So please support the Venable neighborhood and the BAR and uphold our decision. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions for anybody here? So the way we should proceed here is we should have a motion, and we should have discussion from a motion.
I would be willing to make a motion.
Given, okay.
That City Council uphold the BAR's decision to deny the proposed addition.
Okay. Discussion on that motion?
A second. Need a second.
Is there a second? Well, we can have,
Oh,
okay, is there a second on the motion?
If you need one, I'll give a second.
Okay. Second, so is there discussion on the motion?
Well, I'll just say, my default position is always to be respectful of the BAR and the Planning Commission and the citizen volunteer organizations that are set up to protect the city, unless there's a compelling reason to overrule them. And I don't see that compelling reason in this situation. So that's the comment.
And I'll just, since I made the motion, I will say that I read this very carefully, and I did go over there, and I think that, you know, both positions in here have really valid points, and, you know, I think because the BAR was not unanimous, that's always something I look for to say, you know, what were some of the reasons for disagreement, you know, but I think overall, in reading and also hearing the staff report, and nothing tonight changed my mind. I think that because, like Mr. Fenwick, I tend to side with our boards and commissions when there's not a compelling reason not to. I did not find a compelling reason not to.
Mayor Signer?
Ms. Calvin?
I guess I shall bring up an alternative view. I empathize with the frustration between the disconnect between our zoning ordinances and the architectural controlled guidelines. However, I do not think any applicant should get caught in that conflict between zoning and the guidelines. What we need to do, and it's been said, is that we need to complete our code audit, and we need a revision of our zoning that better align with our comprehensive plan vision. However, at this point in time, when I see what the applicant provided and what I see what our zoning is requiring in terms of infill development that promotes more students, more people living within walking distance of where they need to go, that existing zoning does have some sense to it. I look at the drawings, I look at what was submitted, and I believe that it was a very sensitive infill project that increases density modestly without increasing the scale of the street. I mean, so it keeps the character of the context, especially from the street. In many ways, I find myself wondering that, would that all infill projects adhere to the roof ridges as this one does? It adheres to the adjacent details and massing in a manner that diminishes the scale of the project in keeping with the context, and at the same time, it inserts a little bit more density, which is something that we're all grappling with because, as Ms. Miller has said, we do not have any other place to grow. This was a project that seemed to successfully do an infill project that increased density ever so moderately and did it within the context of the existing scale of the neighborhood. So this is, to me, exactly the kind of project we need to be advocating for. I kept going over and over the list of the standard of review. Nowhere did I see anywhere that the BAR's charge is to regulate density, regulate land use in any way. Housing policy is not its purview. That is the purview of the council. We are working and been pushing for the code audit. These same issues came up on West Main Street in terms of BAR being given projects that they believed were far too big given the existing zoning. And what the council did do was change the zoning. But the BAR didn't deny the projects based on the fact that the zoning, they felt the zoning was inappropriate. In this case, it feels like the BAR is denying this project because they don't agree with the existing underlying zoning. And I think that's a very bad precedent and something that we really need to be very careful of approving. So I would have made a motion to not uphold.
Well, that's the part, yeah, so that you've raised that in discussion, which is good. Mr. Bellamy, do you have any, I mean, to put you on the spot.
So this one was very difficult for me just after reading through the background information as well as listening to both presentations. I'm honestly somewhat inclined to agree with Ms. Galvin from the standpoint in which I think this is reminiscent to a certain degree of West Main. And while I have a ton of respect for the BAR, the utmost respect for the volunteers, I feel as if sometimes they get outside of their peer view and they may make decisions that may not be essentially what they were designed to do. And I think we may put them in that position, and it kind of puts you all between a rock and a hard place. But just as Councilor Galvin eloquently stated, this was kind of the plan and the model that we want developers to use. And that's what they did. And for me, that's kind of just where I am.
I lean toward this view as well, toward Ms. Galvin's view. I think it's a really close call, and I think a lot of the cases that come down to us are really close. And then in my time on the council so far, I've demonstrated I've had a great interest in supporting BAR determinations. I think we generally do defer to our boards, but it was a divided decision. I think that this presentation that Mr. Wassenaar made was very compelling, and Ms. Galvin's arguments, I think, are as well. I don't know if my standard is that there's an overwhelming reason. I think it's a very close call, but I do. I think if this could be a forcing function for bigger zoning issues to be driven forward as a result of this confusion, then I think that could be very helpful for city policy. And I think we need that. I think we need not to try to make lemonade out of lemon, but I think it's a close enough call that the arguments in favor of the project and the way that it's designed, and I do defer to Ms. Galvin on some of these quality issues about architecture. And it sounds to me like if it's a matter of potentially perceiving BAR stretching as a regulatory stretch as compared to a fairly narrow application of the design within the existing code, that I would advert to the narrow application of the architecture within the existing code, although it's a very tough call, and that I would say this shows the urgency of figuring out our zoning issues quickly. So I would, it's a tough call. I mean, there's no question. That's where I am. So is there any further discussion on the motion on the table?
Hearing none, I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. Is there a replacement motion?
Then I move, Mayor Signer, that the City Council overturn the BAR's decision regarding the size of this project. However, Council stipulates that the applicant shall return to the BAR for approval of unresolved items, which may include a landscape plan, specific window specifications, and eave details.
I think that's fair. I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, carries 3-2. Close call. Thank you all. All right, we are moving on to the final item on our, no, I'm sorry, we have, yeah,
There was a new item
The new business after.
after that.
yeah, well, the final item on our announced agenda, right. Item number 9, Blue Ribbon Commission on Race, Monuments, and Public Spaces. So we had a work session on this. I'll present on this briefly. We had a work session on this for over 2 hours on Thursday night where we worked through publicly and with public comment at the end a lot of details about this. I wanted to advise my colleagues there was one, it wasn't quite a typo, but it was an unnecessary part. It was 3 bullets after bullet 2 on the second page, which just, what we did, this was just the way that we rewrote it was cost, revenue, sites and siting, and fundraising applies to all 3 of those bullets. But if the draft that you had talked about revenue, cost, and fundraising additionally, so those 3 bullets have been taken out because they're redundant with cost, revenue, sites.
Actually, during our meeting, I was arguing that they needed to stay there because they were a little different.
But I think now they're not, as the bullets have been, it's not a big deal, it just kind of, I don't actually have the older version in front of me.
Well, this I downloaded today, so this is what was here today, because I redid it.
I have the original from last week.
Well, I think that these 3 bullets here, it's specific, a recommendation. It may be that the second one could be taken off, but it specifically talks about revenue, which I think the others are not bringing in the same way, and so that's.
It doesn't, but yeah, it's not a, I mean, now this was more expansive. It says cost, revenue, sites and siting.
I saw that, yes.
So this is not a big deal. This was just meant, okay.
I would prefer to leave those 3 in.
We
if
can keep
could,
them in
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, if everybody's.
Great.
Okay, should we read this out loud? We've already.
It's in the agenda.
Yeah, it's in the agenda. We typically wouldn't read a material like this. Is there any questions?
Mayor Signer, I would just like to just make one more suggestion based on some of the comments or the very detailed letters that we received over the past week from people that have a lot of experience in dealing with process and dealing with historic research. And we all got these emails. And I was contemplating this idea that what can take additional time are some of the very technical aspects of, finding precise alternative locations, doing cost estimates, coming up with a fundraising strategy. So I wondered if we could entertain the possibility of adding the word preliminary in key locations, and then add be it further resolved that the county reserves the right to extend the function of this commission to develop more detailed directives on the locations where memorials may be relocated, cost estimates, fundraising strategies, and recommendations for the erection of additional monuments. It's not slowing down anything in terms of determining what happens to the statues, but it builds in more time to get more accurate data about cost, about where these monuments could go, and that was an attempt to respond to some of the very cogent and detailed emails that we received. So I just offer that, and where I would put preliminary is, again, just before the word location in the first bullet, and in front of the word cost in the second sub-bullet under the second bullet, and in front of the fundraising strategy, and then preliminary recommendations involving the erection of additional monuments.
I actually agree on the addition of the word preliminary. I'm a little less sanguine about adding more time at the end, even after decisions are made, because I think that if we're asking people to apply for this commission, it makes sense to have an end date so that they know when their job is done. I think we might at that point either, re-up a commission or ask staff to go for those further
Okay,
details.
I can accept that as long as we're willing to say that we could get this really excellent report, but it's not detailed enough for us to take action in a very specific way, other than, the more obvious one, but in terms of identifying a fundraising strategy. That will take a long time to figure that out. So if we can, if the word preliminary, so that there's a certain softness.
Where is it going again?
So the word preliminary in the first bullet,
In the first bullet where? On page 1 or 2?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, that would be the second page of the resolution.
The second to the last, further resolved.
Yes. So be it further resolved that council charges the Blue Ribbon Commission with providing a written report by no later than November 30th. That's the be it further resolved I'm looking at.
And where does
So,
preliminary go?
so when you look at the first bullet under that, be it further resolved, you go to the very last line, and it says, and determine appropriate preliminary locations where memorials may be relocated if applicable.
Appropriate.
That's the first preliminary. The second preliminary would be, you go down to that second bullet, and then you go to that second sub-bullet where it says estimate the costs. I have estimate the preliminary costs. And then the next bullet down, develop a preliminary fundraising strategy. And then finally, the third bullet, specify any preliminary recommendations involving the erection of additional monuments, memorials, or historical markers.
So my question, if I may, after which, if we just use the terms preliminary, when the commission comes back to us, do we then say, well, these were all just preliminary findings and we need to go back and appoint them again? Like my only issue with the preliminary piece is that we task the commission, we give them a job, they come back to us with the recommendation, and then we move forward. Like, I'm not quite sure why we need more additional, after we've already given them additional time, as well as a multitude of different resources at their disposal to figure out what it is that we're tasking them to do and then come back to us. Because my only, thank you. My only concern, my second concern is that while we have also heard emails from, or received emails from some people saying that this may need more time and people need to think this out, we've also seen or received emails and communications from people who said that this shouldn't take that long. Y'all should be willing to be able to allow them to make a decision and we move on it. So then we get into the battle of, well, we received emails from these people and then these, like, how do we balance the two? I thought that we crafted a very strong and concise resolution on Thursday.
May I make a response?
Yeah.
Again, I'm responding to two very strong emails that we received from people who are very experienced in a lot of this kind of work, since I'm taking this very seriously. The last thing I think any one of us wants to see is that this committee or this commission gets down a rabbit hole trying to figure out a very particular detail about a cost estimate when we're not getting the big picture. So that's what I'm concerned about, that we really have given this commission a big task. And I wanted to just say, on a few areas, maybe it is only with the cost estimates, and maybe it is only with the fundraising strategy, that we build in a little bit of flexibility in this.
May I, can I offer a thought?
I actually have one.
Okay, Ms. Akers, do you want to go first?
Would you feel more comfortable if the preliminaries were taken out of the second bullet point? Because the other things are really very large, and I think what I worry about, and the reason that I'm interested in seeing preliminary in 1 and 3, is that I'm afraid that otherwise they'll get so bogged down in that that we'll end up with no decisions at all.
I have may I,
Please.
and it's sort of possible compromise on this, because I just want to, so we received one email from a very thoughtful, well-respected community member who's worked on commissions like this in the past and had a lot of expertise. So that was her estimate was that we could have 18 separate public meetings if you look at the 8 different things that we specifically look at. And she was saying, well, you might want to do 2 meetings on this item and a couple on this, and if the commission is meeting every 2 weeks, like a lot of commissions are, then she just was kind of factoring out from there to look at the amount of time. It was very thoughtful. Was by no means, final, because you could have them figure out these problems or do less or combine meetings, so et cetera. But it was just a thoughtful email. I think that is part of what Ms. Galvin. But I actually think that I side with Mr. Bellamy on this, because I'm worried about watering down the advice we get and giving that would concern me. I think we're calling this a Blue Ribbon Commission for intentional reasons. We want it to be a kind of supercharged mission that is. So what if just a thought. So if they're Blue Ribbon, if they're charged with doing holistic, they're really putting all this thought into all these things together. And what if we gave them the ability to come back to us if they determined and applied us for more time? If they determined that they needed it, they could.
I specifically wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, I want to avoid that too.
Because then I'm certainly not going to fall on my sword on this. I just want to make sure that we're not asking for the impossible, in which case we will get bogged down in details and we won't get the recommendations we need. So, and it's a pretty big task to come up with a fundraising strategy within this amount of time. And it's a pretty tall task to come up with a cost estimate that's accurate, that we could bid on.
I would like
staff will,
Yeah, they won't be working in silos.
Staff can take the ball ahead from what they recommend to us. I mean, that's one.
I think number 2 is not that complex, the second bullet point. And we'd say, well, we're in the be further resolved that council charges the Blue Ribbon Commission with providing a written report no later than November 30th. That be it further resolved. So there are 3 bullet points under that.
The last page.
The first one is talking about how council can best complement the previous and ongoing work of these other groups.
Right.
Either through a policy or specific plan. That, I think, is somewhat general. And I'm sort of coming back a little bit on this, but I think the second one, too, is pretty specific. We want to know these 2 particular statutes, what happens to them. And I think if we want to say a preliminary fundraising strategy, I'm comfortable with that, because I think that we can do a fundraising strategy and we don't need that to make a decision. And so if the concern is the location, where was it? Including moving the memorials to, let's see, so was there another preliminary that you had?
Well, there was a preliminary in the first bullet that was determine appropriate preliminary locations where memorials may be relocated. And then there was...
See, if applicable. So I think that even without that, it is pretty general, and I think it may not need one. And I think the second one may not need one. I think the third bullet, any recommendations involving the erection of additional monuments, memorials, and historical markers, especially if you're talking about costs, revenues, and siting, that is too big for them to necessarily... it would be great if they come back by November 30th, but I think with that one, if they have preliminary plans, that's enough for me to then say, thank you, job well done. And then we can work from there.
Well, I would like to see the flexibility part stay in there. If we do our job right, we're going to have 9 very good people doing this. And at this point, we certainly don't know what direction they're going to go in, and they don't. They haven't even been appointed yet. So I would let them have their head in this. Give them a date, but not a date certain, perhaps. But I would encourage the flexibility part. What happens if they suddenly reach some kind of consensus and they're not quite there yet? Do we cut it off? Right there.
We won't be,
That's why we have a deadline.
we won't be cutting it off. One of the things I feel, the city as a whole, and this goes back for several different years, we have had issues with just making a decision. And when we put ourselves in positions in which we say, well, we may not be able to do this because of that, we may need to look at it some more, or we may need to, like, those things have happened for far too long. Let's just allow the commission to come back to us with whatever it is that they find, whatever their recommendation is, and then we go forward from there. They're gonna have a ton of different resources. They will have staff, they'll be able to speak to experts, they have a budget, and they have essentially 6 months.
So it sounds like you're talking flexibility.
They have flexibility within the time frame that's been provided. There's commissions, these kind of discussions are literally going on across the Southeast and across the South as a whole in the United States of America.
It's not undoable.
I agree with what Councilwoman Sakos just alluded to. This isn't anything new. This isn't something that is absolutely undoable. They're essentially taking their time. They're going to be speaking with the community. They have the resources, and they're going to come back to us with the recommendation. I'm just not quite sure why we're looking to give them even more reasons to not just provide us with what we asked them for. If this was the Planning Commission, when they review something, they provide us a recommendation, and then we decide what happens next. Essentially no different from this. These are going to be, as Mayor Signer just alluded to, or I'm not sure if it was you, Mr. Fenwick, these will be quote-unquote blue ribbon community members, high-level individuals.
Mayor Signa, may I offer one possible way
Sure.
out of this? And it completely nix the word preliminary, but go to that third bullet and say, specify any recommendations involving the erection of additional monuments, memorials, or historical markers, including the need for additional research. So that specify any recommendations involving additional monuments, but also including the need for additional research. So that way, if they're saying that they need more, in that last bullet, they need to do more research about these monuments, then they will recommend that. But that gives them that flexibility.
You know, there's probably nothing, I mean, there's nothing that would preclude this commission from doing what I said. I mean, they could come back to us and we could say, no, we're gonna have interchange with them for future, I don't know, what are other responses to Ms. Galvin's? I mean, because that would only apply to that one, to the erection of additional monuments, whereas they're looking at, if you look at the first page, they've got, you know, 8 other, they're looking at naming opportunities.
Yeah,
It
I
could be
know.
that there's a lot of other stuff that they're doing.
We
I think
spent 2 hours the other night. I'd
Well,
like to make a
I
motion
just
that
wanna-
we adopt the resolution as it appears online.
Well, again, Mayor Sidney, I just wanted to make sure that we did not ignore this very, very well-reasoned appeal for more time, and that we're commissioning this group of people to do something that is extremely difficult. And I just wanted to make sure that we were not, in our zeal to get this done by a certain date, in many ways hampering the effectiveness of this group to give us the real answer that this community needs. And so I understand the importance of getting this done within the calendar year. I'm not hearing any consensus about the addition of the word. I will continue to support this, but I just wanted to make sure we had this one last conversation about it and make sure that we're all confident that this is actually feasible.
And I'm assuming that the
like to make a
staff
motion.
will give the commission sort of what we talked about tonight as far as our intent without a change.
Can I try to gather the sentiment here? So it
Look at
sounds,
Mr. Belling was trying to say something. I didn't mean to
I was gonna make a motion. Go ahead.
I just
Yeah,
want
think
to make
Chris-
sure, so
Chris made a motion.
where were we on, so on preliminary being in there in a couple different places? Ms. Akos, you favored that?
Well, the motion that I just
initially.
said was without it, because I wasn't hearing that there was a lot of support for it. And I think as we went through those, I think they're all vague enough, and our discussion tonight makes it clear that, you know, we don't expect to have for each possible additional monument we might ever build, a really detailed funding plan.
I think that, and I just wanted to add to this discussion, so the calculation from this person said that we'd have a minimum 18 meetings if they were biweekly. I think one of the things we learned from this is that if we're all wedded to the pretty tight timeline, the commission is going to have to work. They could have to meet more often, and I think that we include that in our
Expectations.
Yeah, is there any other sentiment in favor of Ms. Fenwick, Mr. Fenwick said, which is including some flexibility with regard to time or the deadline? Do you have any specific formulation of that?
I would accept what Kristen is saying, that just to get this thing going.
Okay.
But I also read that email, and it seemed to me they're packing an awful lot into there. And if that's the case, would it have value to revisit the alternate part of it? Where we have 9 people chosen, but when you have that many meetings, somebody's going to miss a meeting. If we're close to what that one email laid out.
My response to that would be that this is all helping us a great deal. It's fleshing out just a little bit more the demands that we're going to be placing, and I think it may influence the application that we have. It may say we're looking at a tight, intense schedule of meetings. We're looking for you to be available and in town. That may be one, over this 5-month period of time. Is there any other responses to Mr. Fenwick's idea about
And it's actually
alternates?
going to be close to 6 months with the November 30th date. So that helped.
That's right.
These are items that we need to allow the commission to decide.
Right.
Not someone who's sending us an email before the commission becomes appointed. Again, we've decided, and we have, not decided, but we have spoken at length, not only last Thursday, but in previous council meetings about what the commission would look like, how this conversation has started. Why not empower those commission members to be able to decide these items on their own, opposed to allowing someone who would send us an email in the midst of us receiving hundreds of other emails, who I personally believe there have been several people who have given us very fine and well-crafted ideas about how things should go. But we set a very dangerous precedent when we bring in one individual's email who may have experience, while there have been others who have experience in other areas, and we speak about what that in particular person believes we should do and take that responsibility out of the hands of the commission.
Mr.
So
Bellamy,
again, my second would be...
Is that a second to the
Yes, my
motion?
second would be to accept this motion as is, as Ms. Sekas initially moved.
Okay, that's a properly seconded motion. Any further discussion on this?
I just would like to say that it is extremely appropriate and necessary that this body deliberate.
Absolutely.
And that's the only thing I'll say.
I would second myself with that. I don't think there was anything inappropriate in the slightest in the discussion we just had about it. Very thoughtful, and we've deliberated extensively about many other communications we've gotten, and I thought that was an entirely appropriate discussion. That's why we have this on the agenda in a proper council meeting. Last week was a work session. This is where we're actually making the decision. So that would be my response. Any other further comments on the motion on the table?
Thank you, Ms. Galvin.
Thank you, Mr. Bellamy.
Thank you, Mr. Bellamy. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I think all in favor of that motion? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we have new business.
We do. I brought 2 letters. They're not exactly the same. They are at the request of former Councilor Meredith Richards. There is let's see, I don't want to go into it at too much length and yet. Actually, should I just read one? Or actually most of it. Well, the FAST Act, which was the
I think you just
U.S.
summarized,
Transportation Act, was passed to include consolidated rail infrastructure and safety improvement funding for up to $190 million in order to cover a broad range of rail projects. But then after the FAST Act was, had come through some of the process in the Senate Appropriation Committee, THUD subcommittee, I don't know what THUD stands for, narrowed the scope of the program by stripping eligibility for passenger-specific goals, such as investment in stations, upgrades to reduce train congestion, and enhancement to facilitate ridership growth. And because we actually have funding to start the process of a second train set for Amtrak through Charlottesville, and because we're really committed to passenger rail, she felt and I agreed, and so I am submitting it for your consideration, that it would be appropriate for us to write a letter to each of our 2 senators asking them to please work within the Senate to restore funding for passenger-specific goals under the FAST Act.
And one of the ways that this would work technically as drafted is that it would
Drafting a
be-
letter on our behalf from you
Could be
or...
from me, or it could be from the group, but the easiest thing, just have one
And
signature.
the
but it's
final
this-
paragraph says, "We are writing to request your support for restoring passenger-specific goals to the CRISI program. As we understand it, this will require motion for a germane amendment to restore the original references to passenger rail. More specifically, we request you introduce such an amendment when the bill comes to the Senate floor."
And it would say on behalf of city council, so everybody has to be
Right.
okay with that.
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
Very good, thank you.
Any concerns, questions?
So I make a motion that we authorize the mayor to write these 2 letters on our behalf.
Let's not overstate right. I'm going to sign it.
Sign.
They're beautifully
Review
written,
and
as
sign.
written.
And they
I
will
will
be
add
put in the
nothing in
minutes,
prose
I
or-
assume, or put on the website somewhere, so if people want to know what we sent. Ms. Rice, is that something that people can get a copy of if they need it? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, is there a second to that, or I guess this is a
That was a
motion?
motion.
Okay, second to this?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, a point of order.
Yes.
When we bring things up under other business, do we vote on those things? I don't think we do.
I think in this case, maybe we don't need to, but time is of the essence.
So
before
I
it
think
comes
it's
to the
more of
Senate
a...
floor.
Mr. Brown?
I mean, how
What
do
is
we
the-
do that?
I thought we could.
It's not, I do recall that that's kind of a guideline that councils adhere to in the past, although there certainly has been exceptions. I don't think it's addressed in any written policy.
I think unless there's a compelling reason for speed, and in this case, I feel
Right,
that there
okay.
is.
Well, it could, one of the things, is there any objection, as it's not really a matter, it's not an ordinance, not just a resolution, anything, is there any objection from this body to me writing this and saying on behalf of city council, that would be
I
one
would,
way of...
I have no objection, but I also suggest that it might carry more weight if we actually had a vote.
So
Well,
is there any parliamentary concern? I mean, that would be the question.
But my concern has been the fact that this was not posted publicly on the agenda, and we're voting on something that wasn't on the agenda, that the public, I mean, it's a transparency question. I really understand this, I support it, I just want to make sure that we're doing this properly. And it has been our practice not to vote on things. What is the due date on this?
Well, it could go to the Senate floor tomorrow, it could be next week.
I would,
Okay, well,
does
I
it,
guess we just,
does it introduce, is it any different if it's not, it's just a letter, it's a communication, it's not a,
right.
it's not a resolution, it's not a ordinance, it's not, I don't know what category this falls into, but it's a communication, it's not, so does that, on
I think it's just consensus. I don't think we need to vote.
right.
I mean,
That's what it seems like to
it's
me.
a technicality, I know, but I do think there's something that's important for the public when we're voting on something that has a direct bearing on the public. We need to always make sure that's on the agenda. I might be, I just, this is not usual that we would vote on something that's brought up under other business. That's all I'm saying, and I'm wanting to get some clarification, and I can't seem to find it. It
Mr.
seems
Brown,
like-
can you suggest a way out of this
No.
dilemma? Not to put you
I
on the
do
spot.
understand what Councilor Galvin is saying. Frequently, things that are brought up under other business are for the purpose of having it put on an agenda in the future. And I don't know that there's been a distinction between the type of action contemplated, but I also think there's probably, if we looked hard enough, you could find exceptions where there was a time deadline that had to be met.
Okay, so we're faced with, it sounds to me like two options. We need
I'm sorry, I haven't seen the letter. Does the letter reflect that there has been a vote or that you were
It doesn't.
authorized by
It just says
council?
on
It says,
behalf of
I am
city
writing on
council.
behalf of the Charlottesville City Council to seek your help with an
Yes.
item in the transportation budget bill
And-
making its way through the U.S. Senate.
It doesn't reference a vote of the city council. I do things on behalf of city,
Yeah,
all
and
of us do.
it
as
sounds
long as
like,
there's no
it sounds
objection.
like no one's objecting to that in this case.
Okay, so how about if we put this into the category of, well, unless you would like to make, so it sounds to me like one option would be for Ms. Akos to make a motion for us to go, because of the urgency of the need, we could go against standard procedure, and we could have a proper vote, and we could refer to that vote. The other option would just be for assent to me, for me to represent council on this.
May I instead just ask if it is the will of the council that we do this?
Yes.
I'm seeing and hearing yeses.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay, terrific. Okay, any other new business from my colleagues? Okay, other business matters by the public? Anyone have anything, Mr. Kleeman? Okay, this gentleman's first.
I'm Peter Kleeman. I live at 407 Hedge Street in the city. I'd just like to say that I'm delighted that the procedures today opened up every one of the public hearings to members of the public sitting, not necessarily signed up on any prior sign-up sheets. This is different from last meeting where members of the public were denied the opportunity to speak because they had not signed up on a sign-up sheet, and there's no indication that you need to sign up in order to speak. So I think that's a wonderful way to do business, and I hope that to enforce clarity on the issue and transparency, that council in some form, be it a statement on one of these documents on the back of the council agenda or somewhere, that it be stated that unequivocally, if you are sitting in the audience and you would like to speak to a matter that is open for a public hearing, you can speak under all the other guidelines, and that you do not have to have your name prior signature on any sign-up sheet. Thank you very much.
If you could say your name and address.
My name is John Keefe. I just wanted to stop. I did not grow up in Charlottesville, Virginia. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I ended up in Charlottesville because my older brother, who was a former teacher at Charlottesville High School, we had a deal when we were kids that whoever had kids first, the other one had to quit and move there so that we lived by one another. My brother's no longer here. I moved here to attend the University of Virginia as a graduate student at the Curry School of Education, focusing on social studies. And I was going to be here for 2 years on leave. And I fell in love with the town, and I am now hoping to leave the town. And I'm upset because what I found is what I thought was a historical place that was really special is now becoming a place of teachable moments, where I now sit in a venue like this and listen to gobbledygook about making decisions while passing by to get here on a new hotel on a corner where there was a wonderful bookstore that's now gone, passing a hotel that's called the Landmark of all things to get here, and now there's talk about moving a statue that has historical significance that I would challenge anyone up here that they don't really know anything about the person who the statue is of, and if you'd like to have that conversation, I would like to have it. I sent an email. I came to pay a bill earlier today, and I asked when I could speak to somebody about that issue, and they brought it up today. Ms. Rice, I sent you an email, and I left you a phone mail message today. No response, and that's not a problem, but I also, like, when I get something that's important, I respond every day. And so all I wanted to say is I'm probably leaving this town. But it's upsetting. It's really upsetting because this place is special. And it's just a real bummer that you're up here talking about saying, well, we're going to have this council do this and this and this, when reality is Charlottesville is a very special place. Cherish it, save it, take care of it, work together on it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Rebecca Quinn, 104 4th Street here in the city. I don't have my copy of Robert's Rules yet. I have ordered it. But I think the way out on your last issue was that letter plowing new ground. If it was really a restatement of previous positions or discussions, then all you're doing is conveying the sense of council. And so I would agree, I try to follow procedures and law. I don't think it needed a vote unless it was new ground. I do think it is admirable that, unfortunately things often happen so fast in Congress that it does take fast action to get communicate a message. I would also make sure that you not just send it, but have someone do a follow-up call to make sure the right person got it. My only observation on the Blue Ribbon Commission is so much detail in your resolution that it really does come across like you know what the outcome is. And I appreciate seeing more people, especially since 2 or 3 are sort of pre-appointed people, and the allowing the commission some flexibility for more than just a specific set of options. I do think that it's a gargantuan task, and I applaud anyone who is willing to step forward and put in the effort that it's going to take. 6 months is not a long time. And I think that even though they may work very, very diligently, they may not get to exactly where you think they should be in 6 months. But I think it's the kind of group that will come to you partway through and say, we may not make it, and here's why, but here's what we can do. And I hope that you will be willing to listen, that it may be incremental, and it may actually need more time, unless you truly have a specific objective in mind and you don't want them to do the work that you've laid out. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm Uriah J. Fields, 817 Mall Side. All sufficient or important decisions must be made on the basis of insufficient data. If we wait to get all the answers, we will never take action. And when you go to war, and I was in the Korean battle, you don't say that we are going to be defeated. You say we're going for victory. I do appreciate what the council has done in this Blue Ribbon Commission and what you finally decided tonight. Because when you authorize a commission to do something, give them the full authority to make a decision. And as you've said, when they come back, it is you who are going to have the final word. That's what the council is all about. So what I see is, don't predict that the council is going to be so inept and so uninformed that they will not be able, especially if you give them the resources they need, to bring to you the best information, because they are able to get people, consult people from diverse kind of experiences. So I do appreciate what the council has done, and I do feel it's important. Now, some people want to say that because something has been in history, that is important. Well, a lot of change, I've seen changes during my lifetime that people said never would happen. For example, I was in a state where Wallace said, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. But now, look at that university where he stood before when he made his decisions. And see what people are watching the football games. and to see how that football game looked. It looks like a NACP convention turning out. So what I'm saying is change is possible, and we ought to work on it because we are all moving on, and don't expect the next generation to accept everything that we are doing today. But we do have a responsibility to change things. If we cannot improve on what the forefathers did, you know where we ought to be? Exactly where they are, like a sweet potato before you dig it under the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Anyone else? Okay, we are
I have
adjourned.
one quick
Oh,
response to Rebecca Quinn at Olenby 1012. To Ms. Quinn, we are not only sending the letters to the Senate, but we are hand delivering them on Thursday.
Thank you, everyone. By 10:15.
Great.
Wow.